Welcome to a debate edition of the Whatever podcast. We're coming to you live from Santa Barbara, California. I'm your host and moderator, Brian Atlas. A few quick announcements before the debate begins. This podcast is viewer supported, so please consider sending a tip through Streamlabs. That's streamlabs.com/whatever. To display a message on stream is $10 and up via Streamlabs or Superchat. We will be taking viewer questions or comments. We will read those via Streamlabs tips and Superchats that are $99 and up in batches during a few breaks during the debate. You can see the description for full details. Without further ado, I'm joined today by Trent Horn. Trent earned master's degrees in the fields of theology, philosophy, and bioethics. Also joining us today is Farha Khalidi. She is an online content creator. She received a bachelor's degree in English. You both have about a 5-minute opening statement each, and then straight to open conversation. Farha, you go first.
Okay. Feminism has become a well-worn punching bag in recent years for any and all social ills people wish to task it with, from male malaise to collapsing birth rates, erectile dysfunction, male suicide, antidepressants, divorce, and more. People have pointed the finger at female promiscuity in particular for ushering in the supposed moral decay we've all been mirrored in. Women postponing marriage, putting off children, participating in premarital sex, and pimping themselves out on porn sites has been fashioned into a cultural boogeyman for everyone to raise pitchforks at. The red pill movement, traditional conservatism, which is often just red pill in sheep's clothing, and the pink pill have all coalesced on a campaign to convince women that they'd be much happier if they abandoned their modern lifestyles and gave in to their hardwired purpose, marriage. These anti-feminists proselytize that the modern woman debases herself by trading off on her most prized possession in pursuit of hollow ends, and fearmongers her to consider how her body count, digital footprint, and feminist worldview might be an impediment to locking down a husband. Unsurprisingly, one of the most common criticisms I've heard as an OnlyFans creator is that I'll be hard-pressed to find a guy who takes me seriously and respects me. But frankly, I struggle to see how men en masse respect the women they supposedly claim to, their girlfriends, wives, and the mothers of their children. Because despite an increasingly in vogue anti-feminist zeitgeist, I don't believe that sex grounded in love or marriage is inherently more respectful or self-actualizing for women than sex grounded in lust or transaction. Sex grounded in love is often entitled. A man named Randy Vanett repeatedly essayed his 50-year-old partner while she was passed out on pain meds battling throat cancer. He told her about this, and she told him this makes her feel violated, but he said it's to make up for the times that her pain got in the way of them having sex. So she wiretapped a confession out of him and reported him to the police, where he confessed it again. Despite this, the police told Randy that he's done nothing wrong and declined to prosecute. Your husband is the man in your life most likely to rape you. There's often an impulse to assume this sort of statistic cashes out in a watered-down definition of consent and rape, but make no mistake, husbands perpetrate the most violent and repetitive forms of rape. Further, police officers are more prone to dismiss rape reports of this kind due to prejudice that consent is implied by relationships. So not only does sex grounded in love often lack consent, but this loving rape is more likely to be protected as your partner's prerogative. After all, it wasn't too long ago that marital rape was legal in this country. Sex grounded in love is often violent. Over 5,000 women a day are beaten by an intimate partner in the United States. Over 90% of battered women say jealousy was a repeated trigger, and the majority of male perpetrators of domestic violence report this is the case as well. Thus, the sexual possessiveness, commonly featured in love and monogamy, routinely endangers women. Sex grounded in love is often lethal. A man named Kenneth Peacock returned from work to discover his wife in bed with another man. After chasing away the lover at gunpoint, he argued with his wife for hours, drank beer and wine, and then shot her in the head with a hunting rifle. Rather than being sentenced to the typical 25 years this sort of crime typically carries, he was sentenced to a mere 18 months in prison and 50 hours of community service. The judge on the case said he wishes he didn't have to impose any prison time at all because, quote, I cannot think of a situation which would provoke an uncontrollable rage more than this one. I question how any man could have the strength to walk away without inflicting some sort of corporal punishment, end quote. In other words, executing his wife for betraying sexual exclusivity was treated as not only understandable, but a justified and proportional punishment. Your husband is the man in your life most likely to kill you, and more than 3 women fall victim to domestic homicide every single day in this country. If he kills you in the name of sexual jealousy, he might benefit from a crime of passion defense, drawing from English common law, which decreed that catching a cheating spouse was the highest violation of property law and thus justified murder. Even though men commit adultery at much higher rates than women, crime of passion defenses exclusively benefit men as they perpetrate 99% of domestic homicide. Sex grounded in love is often weaponized to excuse infidelity. 70% of married men watch pornography, and if you press a man on why he thinks it's okay to watch porn while in a relationship, despite the fact that his partner is statistically likely to not be okay with it, odds are he'll say it's meaningless because it's purely physical. He doesn't love these other women. Thus, sex through a medium of love often means being cuckolded while he gets off to other women. If he's had an extramarital affair, as 20% of husbands do, though this number is likely lowballed, since cheaters don't tend to be the most honest narrators of their own betrayals, he might swear it didn't mean anything either, since he doesn't love this other woman. Thus, men cower behind the sentiment of love to justify their infidelity as harmless. Sex grounded in love often primes women to degrade themselves. A woman is more likely to be pressured into sex, violent sex, unprotected sex, anal sex, threesomes, and abortions by a romantic partner rather than a casual partner. This is why pimps often employ the lover boy method as a coercion tactic to goad women into unspeakable sex acts. They know that nothing gets a woman saying yes faster to a sexual act than playing boyfriend or husband. In other words, sex grounded in love or marriage is not necessarily grounded in respect. An obvious example of the love-respect gap is that while virtually everyone would say that they love their mother, over 90% of mothers report feeling unappreciated and invisible. And though anti-feminists love to spin female modesty as a prerequisite for male respect, I fail to see how this is the case other than something men simply purport in order to convince some women to remain pure so they can wife them, while nonetheless cheating on them with the rest. I'm not here to condemn marriage or love, but rather to urge people to rethink their assumptions that a woman reserving sex for marriage or relationships is imbued with more respect or more congruent with her self-actualization than the woman who markets her sexuality for, say, public consumption. Okay, I think that was under 5 minutes.
Does that conclude your
That
opening
concludes
statement?
it,
Okay,
yeah.
Trent, go ahead.
Well, I had a more informal opening statement that I'd like to go through. First, I would like to say I'm really glad that you're here. I think that is a very beautiful engagement ring that you have on, by the way. So congrats to that.
You want to show it to the camera?
It's super. That is a nice. That's very.
That's a
pretty.
good opening statement. It's like, you're a hypocrite.
No, I'm just saying that it's a very shocking thing to hear. It reminds me, and like I said, this is a bit more informal. We can go back and forth. It's like when there are some anti-feminist women who sit in front of me and talk about how horrible women are, and I'm like, well, you're a woman. This is the weirdest thing ever. So it's just super duper weird for me to hear, like, I think at one point, and I'll include some of this. We'll go back and forth. What I want to say is that I believe that we can have virtue. We can have people, there are people who live virtue. To love is to will the good. And there are good people. There are bad people, but we need good people in order to keep the bad people in check. And I think, honestly, if we practice virtue and discipline as a society, if we understand that each of us is made in the image and likeness of God, then we can reach our full human flourishing, our full potential as human beings. And so what I want to argue today is that the root of society, the foundation of society, I think there's oftentimes two errors here. Some will say that it is the individual, and others will say that it is it's just the country or the state. But I believe that the root of society is the family, because it is through the family that we get more people. But I do think it's a baffling thing to see someone, and congrats, wanting to enter into marriage, but could speak about the idea of sex being grounded in love being no better than sex not being grounded in love. That's like 2 + 2 = 5 to me. That's just a wild thing. What I heard in that opening was really just like, I feel like, yes, there's bad things, but we could harden our hearts so that the bad things never hurt us, or live in virtue and face the bad things head on and choose to be good even in the midst of evil. It's better to suffer evil than to do evil. It's better to be human and humane to others, even if we might get hurt, than to be inhuman so that we don't get hurt. When we talk about feminism, I don't like the label feminism because, it's been put into this idea of like marriage is bad, men are bad, kids are bad. I don't agree with any of that stuff. So I don't like the label feminism, but I do like the idea that Marie Scheer in 1986 said, feminism is the radical notion that women are people. Okay, I think women are people, men are people, treat each other like people. I don't see what's wrong with that. John Paul II, in his work, Gospel of Life, he said this: in transforming cultures that it supports life, women occupy a place in thought and action which is unique and decisive. It depends on them to promote a new feminism, which rejects the temptation of imitating models of male domination in order to acknowledge and affirm the true genius of women in every aspect of the life of society and overcome all discrimination, violence, and exploitation. So I think we agree violence and exploitation is bad. I agree all the things you listed were really bad. I think we're going to disagree on the answer to that. I think the answer is virtue and people willing to take the risk to do good, and getting married, having children, promoting a virtuous life, well worthwhile and can be done. And I think many other things, pornography, abortion, premarital sex, sexual disorders, that inhibits one's ability to be sexually virtuous. I want people not just to have the bare minimum sexual morality, virtue, doing that which is good. Virtue comes from vir, manly, men to be men, so that women can trust them. I think bad men create feminism. Good men are the answer to feminism. That's my opening.
Okay. Was there anything else in Farha's opening statement that you wanted to respond to? Because she did lay out quite a few feminist positions there. So.
Well, before he does that, what I could say is, like, kind of like I said in my last paragraph, the point of all these examples isn't to say you shouldn't get married or to blackpill women on marriage, right? Like, obviously I'm engaged. I was just trying to challenge the notion that just because you're sexualizing yourself through a medium of love, that it necessarily means that it's more respectful than sexualizing yourself the way I do through something like OnlyFans. Because usually the rebuttal I hear is that the reason it's more degrading, dehumanizing, and demeaning for me to perhaps like strip off on my OnlyFans than do it for someone who I'm dating or married to is because it's more dehumanizing, degrading. Those men don't respect me versus your husband respects you, all these things. And I was saying that sentiment of respect, it doesn't always cash out in the actual realities and statistics that we see. So it's more to challenge the idea that doing it privately is respectful and then doing it publicly is inherently degrading. So it wasn't to just bash one or say, do this over this, you know?
I mean, well, I agree with you that there are evil situations in marriage, and there are people who have platonic and virtuous relationships outside of marriage. But I think where you and I are going to disagree, you mentioned like sexualized through love or sexualized through, I guess, commerce or something like that, through something like OnlyFans. I think you and I fundamentally disagree, though, about, like, I would never say that in my marriage I sexualize myself for my wife. What I would say is, and the question I would ask you would be, what is sex for? And so for me, I believe the answer written into our very being is this: sex is for the expression of marital love. So that leads to what is marital love. I would say that, and that gets us to a more fundamental thing. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me no more, no more. Love is when you will the good for another, but I like one definition of love being this: love always seeks, not definition, but it's commonality. Love seeks union with the beloved. Like, I love going to In-N-Out when I'm out here. I have union with the burger. If you love a friend, you spend time with him. Marital love is a very unique kind of union. It's a bodily union. In marriage, husband and wife fully give themselves to one another, mind, body, heart, and soul. They give themselves to each other, and free and unreserved, in bonds that say, I am yours till death do us part. It's that complete gift of self, a union, nothing like it. And what's neat about it is that the man and woman, incomplete on their own, when they come together, that union, and it's a real union, can produce something greater than them. It has the capability of producing a new person with an immortal soul. That's crazy that God entrusted us with that. And so that child becomes a sign of their gift to each other. And so sex is a way of expressing that when husbands and wives fully give themselves to one another. It's the greatest love on earth. And I want more people to experience that. And things like the General Social Survey statistically show that married people are on average happier than unmarried people. There's going to be cases like the ones you cited, but there's also cases of unmarried people who are more likely to be abused because they're in tenuous relationships. There's lots. For example, I take abortion. 87% of abortions are obtained by unmarried women. So you're much more comfortable, secure feeling with the child if you're pregnant, if you're married, than if you're unmarried.
But also 80% of abortions were procured by women who conceived the fetus while in a relationship with the father. So why not just draw the line at casual versus in a relationship? And then I can just as easily deduce, okay, therefore casual sex is better because you're less likely as a woman to be coerced into unprotected sex, because it's actually easier for you to like lay out a boundary to someone who you don't have to necessarily see a week later. It's harder to do that to a boyfriend or husband, right? So you're kind of choosing where to draw the distinction when I can just as easily draw it at casual versus non-casual.
No, I wouldn't put it in that way, because when someone's in a relationship, they're going to be having sex a lot more. So it makes more sense when you do become pregnant, it's going to be in the context of a relationship where people are not having tons and tons of casual sex. Most people, they might have a few flings here or there, but most people who have sex outside of marriage, the number of encounters, it's just easier, well, especially for men, to have sex in a relationship versus just casual, or I'd say like with a stranger or something like that. So I think though it's clear in the statistics to drop down that when you are married, you really have a stable connection to that other person that other people recognize there is in law, in society, in culture, and it really does change the relationship. It makes it something more stable. I'm excited for that for your relationship with your beau. So, and I would encourage that for people that has been historically throughout history a way to provide stability. And when marriage breaks down, we get a lot of other problems.
Okay, so you think sex should always be inside marriage and that it should be ordered towards what?
I think sex is for expressing that kind of love, that I give myself to you and only you for the rest of my life. So not that it should be, that's just what it's for. It's for expressing marital love. Only you, all of me to you, just you, till death do us part. So that's what it's for, and it's ordered when it's put to that way. When it's used in other contexts, like outside of marriage, then things get really disordered for people. That's why, a lot of casual sex is really awkward later, because you speak with your bodies. Hey, the body is going to, it's written into our being, so the body says what it says, that I fully give myself to you. But in casual sex or even in relationships, you can walk away anytime you want. There's no paperwork to file. There's nothing you have to do. So there's an awkwardness there of you fully gave yourself to someone you're not actually like bonded to in the cultural setting related to that.
But even in marriage, like there are certain conditions that you think are like morally required when you're having sex with your husband or wife. So what are those?
Yeah, well, I just think that, I'm certainly against things like marital rape, for example. So like when you say there about like husbands raping their sorry, Brian, husbands essaying their wives. Yeah. So like when it comes to things like feminism, like I don't use the word feminist to describe myself. There's a lot of baggage with that, but I am not going to say like people who argued under feminism were wrong, like about everything. It's kind of like it's like the civil rights movement. Like I agree with Martin Luther King Jr. that black people should have a right to vote. I just disagree with him about communism. And I think that he was crummy for getting in marital infidelity and that kind of stuff. But like bad people can be right about some things. So like, yeah, I would say civil rights movement. Yeah, we need to, blacks should have the right to vote, should be treated equally in society. But I wouldn't necessarily move all the way towards DEI or weird anti-racism philosophies, things like that. Similar with feminism, I would agree, like, I think it's good if there are laws to say that, there was that famous case, the Rideau case. There was a made-for-TV movie made about it back in the 80s, I think, with Linda Hamilton. She was in Terminator. Drawn a blank, that's fine. That was one of the first cases where a husband was put on trial for marital rape, and then he was found not guilty. They were married but separated, and then he rapes her, and then he's found not guilty. And in the trial, they're like, well, that's just maybe that's a risk in marriage. And I'm like, that's crazy. So no, I agree that like nobody should be essaying anybody. Where I might disagree is if somebody has like a crazy hypercritical definition of consent, where you over define something. But at the base level, nobody should be essaying anybody. And I think that's bad if that happens in marriage, sure. But I think marriage is a protection against that. Because like when you say like, oh, it happens the most in marriage, there's no way you could back that up with criminal statistics when we look at like the FBI data of who is the victim of SA and who isn't.
You disagree with the statistic that your husband's the man in your life most likely to rape you? Like you think that's just
I'm talking about the number of SAs. I don't know. I'm just going to keep saying it to help Brian out here.
No, you're fine.
Okay, fine. Then the number of rapes. At least we're not saying grape. That'd be the worst. No, the number of grapes. I'm saying like we could look up like the number of rapes and see what is the relationship between the partners. I think in many cases, we're going to have people who are acquaintances, people who know each other, but the minority are going to be people who are in a married relationship versus just being boyfriend, girlfriend, or casual dating or casual. Most of them seem to be like casual hookups and things like that. Like just the numbers when we look at, the relation, we have the suspect and we have the victim, the relationship between suspect and victim. the majority of those are going to be they're not married.
Other than like it being consensual, like are there other forms of like marital sex you would say are disordered? Like if they're using like contraception or anything like that, or like what else?
Yeah, well, I would say, especially as a Catholic, I believe that in marriage, the goal is to fully give yourself to your spouse and to not hold anything back when you do that. And contraception is a way of doing that. And also contraception is a way of communicating a kind of like anti-life attitude to a child you might conceive. It's like telling God, it's like telling that future kid, hey, we really want to come together. If you show up, we're going to be really mad. We don't want you here. You know, and that's not an attitude that I want to communicate to my future child. So yeah, I would be against contraception. I would say that, yeah, you should engage in the sexual act that's ordered towards creating that child, not other kinds of things that people might do, whether it's like sodomy or things like that. But finally, I mean, there's the things that you shouldn't do. I also think, though, in married love, Pope John Paul II talked about this in a book called Love and Responsibility, where he says that it's the husband's responsibility to make sure not just that he finds pleasure in the marital act, but that his wife also does, both partners reaching climax, ideally even simultaneously, so they can be fully gifted to one another. So there's bare minimum of consent, don't do things that are disordered, but also it should be pleasurable for both.
Yeah, I was just trying to get at like what are the other like bare conditions other than it being in marriage? Like, does it morally have to be without contraception? Does it have to be ordered towards procreation?
Well, I think that non-procreative sex, using the genitals for a non-procreative purpose, ends up taking us to very disordered kind of behaviors. And there's no way to draw a line really between the two to principally say, oh, this is disordered and this isn't. Now, I get people listening and be like, well, what's the deal with contraception or oral? I don't even necessarily want to call it sex. Like for me, sex is man and woman coming together. It's marital act, penis and vagina, because that's ordered towards procreation. It's a union. Like to be a union, it can't just be one body part and another. Like in the Bible, we talk about how in Genesis, Adam and Eve become one flesh. Like that's not a metaphor. Like if the doctor puts his hand in my stomach during an operation, like in my ribs or something, like we're not having sex, we don't become one flesh. It's not just one body part and another. It's that when it's ordered towards that procreative end, then you truly have union. The two come together, ordered towards an end beyond themselves. So that's why, though, I think that the other side of this issue, it's a very difficult time explaining the wrongness of certain kinds of non-procreative sex. Sexual acts with objects, with animals would be another example. One that I could give here, you might say, oh, well, animals, that's abuse or things like that. And we can hash it out with your thoughts on all that. Sexual acts with roadkill, for example. I know these are like wild things, but you know what? I watch a lot of body cam videos on YouTube and I see people get arrested for the weirdest stuff. So I think, though, if you open the door for non-procreative sex being moral, you got to accept all of the weird, disordered stuff that I would say is very sexually unhealthy.
So like sex with roadkill or an animal, like how do you think that should be like punished? Like do you think just like stigma, or it should be like criminal?
Oh, criminal.
Okay.
It is against the law. Because I mean, the thing is, if we already live in a culture that is so far gone sexually, that there's very few lines left to be able to tell people this is disordered. And once sex becomes like this meaningless thing, then like the reason sex is so important is because families make society. Like what is society? It's a bunch of people, right? Where do people come from? They come from families. So it's in the best interest of society to make sure families are really strong. So like when a baby is born, they're super helpless. I have 3 children. They're all one of them was born at home accidentally. It was COVID. And so like we didn't want to, we were waiting to go to the hospital because we really didn't want to go. And he's on his way and I catch him. And then I'm getting ready I took off my shoelace to make like a little tourniquet to tie off the cord. And then like the ambulance gets there and all that. But like when that little guy was born, it's like, wow, he's totally helpless. Like me and my wife, Laura, like we are irreplaceable to him. I mean, if we died, other people could raise him, but it would never be exactly the same. It'd still be a loss. But so if we're irreplaceable to him, Like, what if it's good there's something that makes us irreplaceable, that bonds us together, makes us irreplaceable to each other. And that's where marriage comes in. And sex is really important to marriage because that's what keeps the couples united together. So that's why I super don't like it that like you do OnlyFans and 90% of the people who use OnlyFans are married guys. I mean, I think like let me give you an example. Like let's say if I owned a gun store and I found out 90% of my customers were murderers, like they used the guns to kill people, I would close down shop the next day. So for me, I'm just like, does that ever like give you pause or make you feel like, oh, guilty or sad or anything?
No, I mean, you and I maybe have some, well, let me give you an example. So you're Catholic, you'd probably think that thinking of someone with lust is a form of adultery, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm pretty rad-femme. I would think also it's cheating to be like checking out another girl, or at least it like transgresses monogamy if, for instance, you're watching porn and stuff like that. Or if you're like,
and I'm not like a super weird, like, oh my gosh, if you glance and notice somebody, you're cheating. It's like, there's a difference between
looking at someone and checking them out.
There's a difference between a snapshot and time-lapse photography.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so my point was like lust based off both of our definitions. I don't mean just checking someone out, right? So if I were walking around in, let's say not even this outfit, I'm at the beach wearing a bikini, right? Let's say 90% of the people who check me out are married men. I would say that they've committed adultery. So would you.
Yeah,
I wouldn't then say that I have a moral onus to cover up just because most of the people looking at me shouldn't be, right? It's fine for single people to look at me, perhaps, or it's fine for people who aren't like transgressing a monogamous relationship. But why does the onus fall on me for them transgressing it when both watching porn and subscribing to someone's OnlyFans and checking someone out by both of our worldviews is infidelity? So why is the onus only falling me for one of those? Is it just because I'm making money off it, or what is it?
No, I would reject the premise. I would say that it's wrong for you to use nudity and sex to make money on OnlyFans. And I also think women who do it for free on the beach, it's also wrong. I think
wear bikinis.
Yeah, I think that that's the virtue of modesty. And the reason for that is I believe, and this is where I think we might differ, I think sex has an inherent, powerful meaning that is always communicated in sexual acts. It is something intrinsic. You can't turn it off. So you can't be like, oh, when I have sex with this person, it means something. But when I have sex with this person, it doesn't mean anything. That's a lie. That's not true. Under my view of what sex is, because it's written into our nature as human beings, sex always is about communicating that kind of marital love. Now, revealing the sexual elements of one's body is a prelude to that. So I believe that sex is not just something that we do, it's something that we are. Like, we are sexual beings. You have a female body, I have a male body. And so there's sexual elements to that help to entice. And so there's power to that. Like there's sexual power. Like, women have that just in their form. There's if you look online, there's a bazillion Renaissance paintings of topless ladies in beds. There's very few of men naked in beds. Our bodies just don't look as nice. I
mean, the bikini is kind of arbitrary, right? Like, men can obviously lust after women or check out women who are dressed modestly as well, right?
And that's on them.
Right. So it becomes on me once I'm in the bikini or on OnlyFans, right? So I guess my point was, I don't think I'm responsible for someone else committing adultery. I don't market my OnlyFans towards married men. There are some porn sites like that where it's like, life's short, cheat on your wife. I would agree that that's unethical because you're like marketing towards adultery, right? But I would say that same way, I don't think the onus is on me if I'm walking around in a sweater and a guy's lusting after me if I'm wearing like, a tight turtleneck. Yeah. I don't market my content towards married men, and I don't know why the onus would be on me if they're committing adultery,
right,
when my content's not targeted towards it. And like, an analogy I think of is, a lot of men, for instance, use dating apps to cheat on their wives. I don't think, there's something inherently wrong with Bumble. It's not designed for married people to use, but it is a medium where married men routinely do cheat on their wives, right?
Right. No, I have other issues just with dating apps in general. I think that they contribute. I think that they are built and designed not to really promote stable and flourishing relationships, because it's in the app maker's interest to keep you on the app swiping as much as possible, not to get into a fulfilling relationship and off of the app. It's against their own monetary interest to help you find long, true, fulfilling, lasting love. So that's my skepticism.
No, that's fine. I guess I would just say.
Right. So you're saying something can be misused. Something can be misused doesn't mean it's bad.
No. It could be misused without it speaking to that medium being morally bad.
Right.
So just because men, the most common way they have affairs is with a coworker doesn't mean women's entry into the workforce is bad or we should remove women from working. So
Right.
just because porn and OnlyFans is just one medium and in pretty much infinite matrix of way in which men cheat on their wives, whether it be through lusting after other women, thirsting to other women's Instagram photos, having sex with a coworker who could be modestly dressed, right? She doesn't have to be wearing a bikini or scantily clad, right? I'm just saying, I just feel like porn and OF is kind of the one time where we defer the blame of adultery from the perpetrator onto the medium. And I do feel like it ultimately like guts men of the total responsibility from it. And it just like participates in slut shaming just because it's like socially satisfying too.
But when do you? Well, a few points on there, and then I do have a question for you. I think that when you're comparing different things that could be abused, we have to ask: do they have a good compensating good for society as a whole to tolerate, the abuse that is within it? So, for example, like if I had a gun shop, it might be the case that 0.5% of people who buy them use it for criminal activities, but 99.5% use it for hunting, self-defense, for good things. So there I would say, oh, well, it has an overarching good, and I can tolerate the minority of bad actors who misuse the thing. When it comes to modesty and things like that, I mean, I agree with you. It's bad if women are always just blamed for something like that. Like guys, if a guy is like checking out a girl and she's being modest, that's on him. But it's really clear to me that like, if like the purpose of lingerie is to sexually arouse a guy because he gets to see all the girl's lady parts and even they're frilly and all that. It doesn't seem like there's that much difference between lingerie constructionally, how it's set up, versus a bikini. In some cases, lingerie covers more than a bikini. Like you get like the baby doll dresses, and those things like that. And like I said, I would say that it's not about saying, oh, cover up means like you're bad. I would say women are kind of more like nuclear reactors. They have a great amount of power in their body, their sexual powers that they have. And so just like you have to control the energy in a nuclear reactor before like it could be misused, it would be the same for, a woman and her looks are primarily the thing that like entices a guy. So like a girl to get a guy excited, she'll strip down to a bikini. Like if a guy strips down to a Speedo, usually girls just kind of laugh. Like I think we get sexier when we put on more clothes. Like when we have like a 3-piece suit or something. But women are just different.
And if there was a statistic that men are more likely to lust after a woman if her hair is revealed, would you be a proponent of hijabs or burqas, or like where would you draw the line of where women need to pretty much accommodate men's wandering eye?
I think that's just there are sexual parts.
Well, I think it's context dependent. Like there's a reason that in the Middle East, foot fetishes are more rampant, and it's because it's like the one body part that isn't revealed, right? So I'm like what we consider sexual
but that's
does happen.
why,
like I had a friend who was in National Guard, and when he came back, even just seeing women's collarbones turned him on like crazy, because the only time he saw women for like the past 8 months was, from like just the face and hands basically, right? So it is context dependent.
No, because what I would say is where sex is properly ordered is towards the marital act, towards vaginal intercourse, ordered towards a procreative end. And so it makes sense then that as a man, you would be excited by the things that are associated with that, with the sexual parts associated with that. Even breasts are a part of that because they do signal health and fertility. Like human breasts are unnaturally large compared to other primates, for example. So they do have a secondary sex function.
So are lips though? So why not cover up lips? Both are secondary sex characteristics.
Because lips do not have. Everybody knows the particular parts that are covered up, which ones in a properly ordered way will arouse somebody. And that's where when I said non-procreative sex is bad, it's bad. A guy has a disorder if he looks at feet and he gets turned on, or if he looks at a tree. There are dendrophiles. There's people who get super excited by trees. If we don't say sex is for a procreative end, then we're not able to say somebody's fetish is disordered, because otherwise we can't say what sex is even for in the first place. So that's where I would be concerned. If sex is just whatever, or it has no actual end, then we can never say, hey man, you've got a sexual disorder. You've got to rewire your brain. You can't be getting an erection going to the botanical garden. It's not cool.
Is it fair to say that you think like the necessary conditions of a sex act to be moral or good would be like order towards procreation, pair bonding, and then consent? Like those are the 3 necessary conditions.
Yeah, that is it's within the marital act. It's done, I would say, privately, so it's tasteful. I don't want people doing that on the beach or something. Other body cam videos I have seen, by the way. I'm like, what are you doing? So I would say that consent is given. It's a marital act, full free gift of self between husband and wife. And basically that, they're not, I guess I would look at it this way. Here's how I would summarize Catholic ethic on this. Like, if guns, like, take about gun safety. Like, basic thing of gun safety is like, don't point a gun at something unless you're okay destroying it. So like, there's videos of people at shooting ranges, and I saw one, the guy is like with his friend, and he's just like, hey man, and he points the gun at his friend. He's like, hey, like taking a selfie, and the range instructor comes over, grabs the gun, he's like, you're out of here. You are 100% out of here, because like, that's super duper dangerous. Do not point a gun at something unless you are 100% okay destroying it. I know it's a crude analogy, but I'm going to run with it. For a man, don't insert the weapon between your legs unless you're 100% okay with not destroying life, but creating life as a result from that. And that's where the marital act fits in.
Okay, so I would say for me, the only like necessary condition for the most part of a sexual act being moral is if it fulfills self-actualization, so things like consent, dignity, and respect. I don't think it being ordered towards procreation or pair bonding are necessary conditions. So for example, like you're against masturbation, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So for instance, I would consider it better for a woman to opt to masturbate than, for instance, have sex with a husband who tells her that she looks hideous naked, even though only the second is ordered towards procreation and pair bonding, right? Mm-hmm. Would you agree with that? Or do you think the second is the better ethical choice?
Well, you could change the other example. It's like she's like going to go, a lot of people might cheat on their husband in that case, but just because somebody commits evil towards you doesn't mean you would commit evil back
I'm just asking between the two, a woman masturbating or having sex with a husband who tells her she looks hideous naked, which one's more ethical?
Which one's more ethical?
Yeah, because I would pick the first.
Well, I would say the sex act itself between the two of them, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. But sex outside of now, what the sex act itself is nothing wrong, but the husband's being a total jackass. He's being, mean to her. He disrespects her. Yeah. Yeah, he disrespects her, and you could change the genders, and you'd reach the same conclusion.
But I think it'd be more an infringement on her self-actualization and dignity for her to have sex with a man, even if she's married towards him, even if it's unprotected. So it's ordered towards procreation and pair bonding. If he tells her she looks hideous naked, than for her to just opt to masturbate. I'm not saying a woman in the real world has to masturbate just because her husband. I'm just saying between the two, the former is obviously better, right? I think you obviously agree, which is why you're being hesitant about it.
No, I'm not hesitant about it because you've loaded the example. I'm saying that non-procreative sex is disordered. Our genitals were not made to be just orgasm machines. So that is disordered, but there's going to be levels of where you can identify the disorder. So let's say, I'll give that example. Which do you think is worse? That lady is just like, she could have sex with her abusive husband, or she puts peanut butter on her vagina and lets the dog lick it off. And it's like, at least the dog doesn't make fun of me, man's best friend. Do you think that's better for her than sleeping with her husband?
My concerns with bestiality are just about animal cruelty. If you were to like zero out animal cruelty somehow.
I agree that peanut butter can really get stuck in a dog's mouth, so that can be hard. We'll try jam, strawberry jam.
I would say like it'd be better for a woman to do the dog thing than, for instance, have sex with her husband who beats her. Yeah.
Okay, so you think it'd be better if she's like, oh man, nobody.
Even though one's more disordered, I think the better thing for me is the one which is more congruent with her like self-actualization, in which she's not being demeaned, beaten, abused. Yeah. Obviously, it's more disordered, and maybe like we would think that's very antisocial of her.
So you think it's better for a woman to engage in bestiality than to have sex with a crummy guy?
With a what?
A crummy guy, a mean guy. It's better to have sex with a nice dog than a mean man.
I don't know about the sex stuff. I'm
okay. Fine. Not intercourse, to engage in. Well, fine. Which is worse? A mean man performs cunnilingus on her, or the nice dog?
If there was like a reality in which you can run like tests, like I'm vegan, right? So I'm very pro like considering animals.
You just don't eat them, but like
but I'm saying that like if you could somehow actually test the animals' like desires and like push the levers that they could consent and all those types of things, right? Then like I have no issue saying that like it'd be more disordered because it's atypical. It'd be more antisocial. It'd be more like maybe it could be a proxy for other mental illnesses, right? But I would say that it's worse for her to have sex
Let me ask you this.
with the man who beats her, assuming she doesn't want to be, isn't engaging in some sort of like BDSM type thing.
Okay.
Like consensual.
No, because let's run down this disturbing road more, because this is where I have the big problem with very minimal. I mean, you put self-actualization here, but I worry that word doesn't really do any work beyond consent. You say, oh, well, it's antisocial to have a dog, working on you or something like that down yonder. Is it okay to play? It's okay to go to the beach. If we went down to the beach here, Santa Barbara, play Frisbee. That's a fun thing to do, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say I brought my dog and I'm like, hey guys, he's super good at this. I'm going to work on Frisbee with my dog. Like, that's not an antisocial thing for me to play Frisbee with my dog.
Right.
So why would it be antisocial to do sexual pleasure with a dog? If you do it with other people and every now and then Fido gets a treat. I mean, for me, it's just patently obvious. It's because sex is for people, and we know it's for people because of the procreative end. When you take that away, you get all of this just crazy.
But if the issue for you, for why it's wrong to have sex with a dog, has little concern with the animal cruelty, it's simply because you're saying sex is designed for two people to engage with, so just get rid of the dog in general, because it has nothing to do with animal cruelty,
what you're trying to
and
do,
then focus on the masturbation, because the dog is good shock value. But if the issue is just that sex is designed for two people, why not just keep it between masturbation? Like, why not just have it be masturbation? Because the animals' desires are irrelevant to you in the moral equation, so just have it be masturbation versus whatever type of sex with a crummy guy.
The reason I have to do that is because masturbation is very common. Okay, it's just a lot of the people.
But in your view, it's as disordered as bestiality, because the only reason, by your view, bestiality is morally disordered is because sex is designed for two people, ideally in marriage and ordered towards procreation. The animal cruelty is irrelevant to you.
No, because it's not about animal cruelty.
It's that sex is designed for husband and wife.
Can I finish?
Yeah.
Can I finish, please? Because I have constructed an example where it can't be cruel because the animal isn't suffering any harm or pain or anything like that, any more than if you let him lick the jam out of the jar.
Yeah.
Or lick, if the jam like spilled on your leg, you're having dinner, and that's the trope with the dog, right? The food falls from the table, dog comes and eats it. Dang it, I dropped the jam on my foot. Fido, and he comes over and licks the jam off your foot. Nobody cares. That's not cruelty. But I'm picking this example because it shocks people. Like, whoa, that's bad. That's gross.
Yeah.
That's gross. Because they've lived in a culture that has brainwashed them to say, oh yeah, it's fine. Masturbation is fine. Sodomy is fine. These things are fine. And so now I have to say, look, if you take that thinking as to why you think it's fine, you got to accept all these other things. Because I gave the other example. I don't know if I mentioned I think before the show, but it doesn't have to even just be a living animal. What about people who use roadkill as a masturbatory aid? So that's necrophilic bestiality.
Yeah, you could still
there's no cruelty there, but clearly that's freaking messed up.
Yes.
But you can't say it's wrong.
No, I could still say something is disorder the same way if someone told me they refuse to eat any foods that aren't like the color blue, we would think that's like, again, a proxy for some mental issue.
No, that's not
we
the
should
same.
probably try to correct for it's disordered. I don't know if I would necessarily call it immoral. The same way, again, if the issue for you isn't any animal cruelty or the desires of the animal, why not swap bestiality for, like you said, dendrophilia, people who like to have sex with trees?
They're also when most people say they're weird too.
Is it morally wrong? Is that morally wrong?
Yeah, that's not what trees are for. Is
it as morally wrong as bestiality?
Is it as morally wrong?
It should be by your view, because it's irrelevant about because you don't think animals are rational agents, so it has nothing to do with the effects or harms on the animal.
Different disordered activities can be right or wrong based on various circumstances, all right? So, I think that fornication, like having sex outside of marriage, is wrong, and also that rape is wrong. Because sex is for expressing marital love.
But that rape is worse than fornication, yeah.
Right, even though both of them because what is marital love? Marital love is the free gift of self. So it's wrong in fornication because you have not been bonded together, and it's wrong in rape because you're not freely giving.
Yeah,
so yeah, you could pick. I'm picking all of these other examples because once people start to think about it and say, oh yeah, this is, or there's other, well, I can get away from those.
Wait, sorry, one more thing. So the reason that rape for you is morally worse than fornication is because the reason fornication is wrong is primarily because it's sex outside of marriage. The reason that rape is wrong is because, one, it could be sex outside of marriage. Two, you're lacking the necessary condition of consent. So it's two things. For you, the one main reason for why bestiality is wrong has nothing to do with the effects of the animal or the animal's personal desire desires because they're not rational agents to you. It's just that they're using sex in a disordered way. So dendrophilia should be as disordered to you on the same level as bestiality because it's not introducing a second wrong thing.
It depends.
Rape versus fornication adds a second wrong thing, a second transgression of a necessary condition.
No.
What does bestiality offer that dendrophilia doesn't, since you're not factoring in the animal's desires?
No, I'm saying that essentially, whether you call it dendrophilia or bestiality or necrophilic bestiality, roadkill, so that's not involving any infliction of cruelty whatsoever, or consensual necrophilia, your spouse dies, agrees to be stuffed and kept in the house and do whatever you want. Essentially, all of these things, they're essentially masturbation with different masturbatory tools.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
That's what
they all
are.
They should all be the same level. Masturbating in a sock should be seen as immoral as engaging in bestiality. You could say it's more disordered because it could be more of a proxy for mental illness because it's more atypical and antisocial. But from a moral point of view, they all have the same transgression, which is just that it transgresses that, in your view, sex ought to be between a husband and wife.
But here's the problem. You called it disordered earlier. You called bestiality disordered.
I didn't call it. Yes, but when I say disordered, same way, a person who says I will not eat any food that isn't the color blue. That's what I mean by disordered.
How about just occasional?
I'm not saying morally.
They have sex with people 98% of the time.
Yeah.
And every now and then, it's with the dog. So that's just every now and then. It's not like saying, "Oh, I only eat what's blue." Like that would just be a weird neurosis. It's just every now and then they do it. But even if they did it every now and then, that's still weird. It's really wrong. And I would say that it's
disordered for me is a substitute for the word weird, just with a bit more like clinicalness behind it. So I'm saying it's disordered in that like a personality is you can have a personality disorder. It's not immoral to have a personality disorder. You can have a neurological disorder. It's not immoral, right?
No, but just because
it's disordered to make a recipe
weird,
in a wrong way.
Just because something's weird doesn't mean it's wrong.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
I think eating durian can be kind of weird. It's a really smelly fruit from Southeast Asia, or blood pudding from England. I think that stuff's weird, but I wouldn't say that it's wrong.
Agreed. I'm not conflating disordered and wrong. I'm saying the peanut butter dog thing. If you were to push the levers that the dog is actually into it, whatever, like you were to mess around.
Push the levers, I'm sure. If he licks it off the foot and he likes it, there's not much that's not that different from that and the genitals.
I would rather every single person in the world who eats meat rather put peanut butter on themselves and have a dog lick it off. I think that's way ethically better, 100%.
And I think we have fallen into the caverns of depravity because we don't want to answer the question, what is sex for? I mean, did you answer that earlier? What is sex for? Did you give me an answer to that?
Yeah, so I would say that the three primary functions of
No. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Is self-actualization, reproduction, and pair bonding, but I think self-actualization is the only necessary condition and takes precedence. Wait, sorry, let me continue. So what I was saying with the masturbation example, I would think it's better for a woman to masturbate than opt to have sex with a guy or her husband who calls her hideous naked. I would also consider it better, for instance, for a woman to have protected, so with a condom, casual sex with her male best friend who thinks the world of her, than have unprotected sex with her husband who cheats on her, even though only the latter is ordered towards procreation and pair bonding.
That's what I was going to get to. I want to get to this.
So for me,
infidelity.
So for me, respect is much more important than, for instance, whether it's done within marriage or done without a condom, because for you, contraception is wrong because it's not ordered towards procreation. I think with a condom, with a male best friend who thinks the world of her, it's casual, it's fun, whatever, I think that is 100% the more ethical choice than her having sex with a husband who's committing adultery.
Okay, or maybe he's just he's been kind of mean lately. He's been difficult.
Well, so I was saying whether it's her masturbating, having casual sex with a friend who respects her, or even I would take it further. I think it's better for a woman to post a bikini photo online and paywall it for $5 than have sex with her husband who beats her. Again, even though only the latter is ordered towards procreation and pair bonding. And I think intuitively you would agree all the stuff on the left-hand side.
Why do you have to go off? It's just so weird. Your answer to oh, I'm in this horrible abusive situation. Well, have you tried being a whore?
No, that's not the point of the hypothetical. The point of it is to say, clearly, if you agree that the stuff on the right-hand side is more egregious and she ought to opt for the stuff on the left-hand side, then you're agreeing with me that the only necessary condition is self-actualization for the sexual act, as in consent, respect, etc. And you are willing to trade off on it being ordered towards procreation and pair bonding, because only the right-hand side is ordered towards those things. But if they were as necessary as consent, it'd either be a toss-up which one you choose, or you would pick at least some of the stuff on the right-hand side. But it seems, even though you do think contraception is wrong and you think casual sex, premarital sex, fornication, all those things is wrong, it still seems like you think it'd be better for the woman and more ethical for her to opt for sex with contraception, with a casual friend, fornication, masturbation, even potentially sex work if she's paywalling a bikini photo, than have sex with a husband who degrades her verbally, cheats on her, beats her.
There would be nothing immoral if she chose to have, if there is nothing immoral if a woman chooses to have sex with a guy and he's a bad guy. She's choosing to do it. It's not, there's nothing immoral if she chooses to do that. But she might also tell him, we're in a really bad spot, so I would prefer to not do this right now until we get our marriage back in order. Can we please do that and figure out what is broken here?
Yeah,
but what you did, what you're doing here with it'd be better to post a bikini pic than to sleep with an abusive guy.
I'm not saying those are her only two options.
No, these,
I'm saying
it's
the point
false
of
dilemma.
it is to show what is the necessary condition for you. That's why they're shocking examples, to show that, well, it seems like you actually don't think contraception is as necessarily as the respect component or the dignity component or the honesty about adultery component.
No.
Even if the best friend, for instance, that she hooks up with is hooking up with other people as well.
Don't ever commit adultery. Don't ever commit adultery. Even if your spouse sucks, don't ever commit adultery. It'd be like if I said, well, what if you have, you could either steal for medicine, you could steal from this poor person or this rich person. Oh, I guess I'd steal from the rich person because they don't know as much. Oh, then I guess stealing is okay sometimes. No, if you do those dilemmas, you can justify anything.
No, that's perfect. Exactly. From that, you could deduce that I think it is pretty much always better to steal from a rich person. So likewise,
no, you just shouldn't steal at all. You just shouldn't steal.
But I'm saying
it's better to suffer evil than to inflict evil.
You're saying from those, if I pick steal from the rich person, you could reasonably deduce that I think it's worse to take from someone who is suffering from more hardship, all other things being equal. So I'm saying the point of my hypotheticals is to prove that you do consider contraception, casual sex, fornication, all these things to still be morally better than marital sex ordered towards procreation.
You mean morally worse? Wait, what did you say? Contraception is better than procreative sex?
If you're struggling to pick between the left-hand side of things I gave, whether it be her masturbating, her having casual sex with a male best friend, in which they're using a condom, so contraception, which introduces another thing you think is wrong, and then also her paywalling a bikini pic.
I'll be very clear. All of those things are evil. You should never do them. And then the other thing is something that is not evil, and I would say that it's bad if she feels forced into this kind of situation. But if the choice is just her being raped by the husband versus doing some other kind of evil, then it's just, well, should you do this evil thing or should this evil thing happen, which is totally unrealistic.
It's unrealistic in the sense that a woman obviously has more recourse than my husband's beating me, time to go start on OnlyFans. Yes, the point of the thought experiment is just to ask you, which traits do you think it's worth trading off on? And it seems like in all of these, it's okay to trade off on, okay, whatever, they used a condom, okay, whatever, she wasn't in a committed relationship, it was a male friend, okay, whatever, she posted a bikini photo.
I'm not okay
it's very obvious that those things are more ethical than having sex with the guy who's beating her, cheating on her.
I am going to be very, very clear about this. What the guy is doing is incredibly unethical. And if she chooses to have sex with him regardless of that, she has done nothing wrong. But I don't think that she should be compelled to have sex with someone who is abusing her. But if she chooses to have sex in this situation, then she has not done anything wrong. But if she commits infidelity, which that's what I want to ask you about infidelity.
I'm not asking whether she's doing something wrong. Sorry. Which is the more ethical scenario? Sorry. A woman having...
Scenarios aren't ethical. People are.
A woman having consensual sex, so he's not raping her, consensual sex with a man who beats her. She's not happy about the beating. It's not consensual beating. Or a woman having casual sex with her male best friend who thinks the world of her and treats her great.
It's the same as if I could say, which is the more ethical scenario? A person works at a job where their boss exploits them, or a person goes and steals? What do you think? A person works at a job and they're being paid, but also it's an unfair working condition and it's substandard and bad, versus they go and steal. Which is the more ethical scenario?
Well, I would ask for more questions about the stealing one. I can give you details for both my categories.
Fine. They steal.
If they steal from Walmart, I think it's better for them to steal from Walmart. Yeah.
How about stealing from a family makes $100,000 a year?
it's probably better for them to say the exploitation would matter too. If they're working in a massage parlor where they're being exploited in the sense of they're being forced to like jerk off customers and their boss is essaying them, then I would say probably rip off the family who makes 100K. Yeah.
Okay. So we're okay. And that's the big divide between us, that I think we do live in an evil world. The Bible even talks about how the devil is the god of this world. It's in suffering, there's evil. And the question is, how will we respond to evil? Some people say, fine, I'm going to be just as bad or even worse. And I would say our true calling as being made in the image and likeness of God is to be filled with the grace of God so that we can go and do good and even suffer through evil. Mm-hmm. That's why I love being a Christian. My Lord, he was horribly abused. People mocked him. They whipped him. His skin was falling off of him. And he didn't go and knock over the Judean 7-Eleven. He willingly submitted to horrible, agonizing suffering for me and you, even though we don't deserve it. And that's what I want to be like. And I think most people deep down, they can look at someone and say, wow, they really suffered a lot in life, but look at how they carried that suffering and always chose to do good. Like, I'll ask you this. When you were given a choice between good and evil, should you always choose good?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Good. That's the most basic element of the natural law.
But you know what the point of the questioning was, which is which thing is less bad. And if the less bad thing is the thing which still ticks off more of the things you think are bad, such as contraception, fornication, casual sex, etc., like versus the things which meet your conditions but only trade off on one thing, which is maybe like the husband's not, doesn't respect her, whatever. Mm-hmm. Why is it then the thing with just one transgression versus the thing which has multiple transgressions, as in they're wearing a condom, that's a transgression, it's fornication, that's a transgression, she's wearing a bikini photo and selling it, that's a transgression, masturbation, You would think just by like quantity, because all these are necessary conditions for you, order towards procreation plus consent, you think just because they're all necessary, why is it then just the quantity of the ones on the left wouldn't make it morally worse than this one? And I think it's because you do think this one is worse and that these are less of necessary conditions.
No, because there are some things that are intrinsically evil. There are some things we ought never do, even if we could create good consequences. So like there was a movie back in the 90s called An Indecent Proposal. I want to say it was Demi Moore and I forget who else was in it. But the idea is like a guy offers a husband, I'll give you $1 million if I can sleep with your wife. And now you think about it, you might say, oh, well, he could use that $1 million and he could buy 300,000 malaria nets for children in the Central America, and he would save tens of thousands of lives with that kind of money. Should he do it? No, because you should never commit adultery. Sex is so sacred to a marriage. We should never do evil, specifically do evil, so that a good can come from it. But I think yours will be different. That's why I want to ask about infidelity, because that was like brought up. Are you saying like, let's say just two questions. I want to hear about infidelity. What do you mean by self-actualization first? Because that's just like a vague buzzword. What do you mean self-actualization?
I would say consent. I would say free from any...
No. What is that concept? Because it's different than consent for you.
Oh, sorry.
Because for you, it was three things.
Yeah.
You said dignity, like sex has consent as the minimum, but it's good. Sex is good when it has dignity, respect, and self-actualization. And that was like the highest thing for you. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
Flourishing. I would say it's a pretty vague word. I pick it because no matter what like ethical system you subscribe to, whether you're like Catholic or neo-Aristotelian, like I think most people kind of subscribe to an idea of self-actualization. I think even though again you add these other conditions such as it needing to be within marriage and all these things, I think deep down you actually only really think the necessary condition is also consent and self-actualization. Because for instance, like I watched a video you did about sexual ethics where you were saying like in sex ed, like the only thing they should really teach is consent, right? Like you weren't necessarily saying they need to teach it in the context of marriage.
I think I was talking about what should like public schools, like non-religious schools teach. Now, I would love to live in a Christian country where Christian values were a part of the social fabric the country taught. We don't have that. So when I get a choice, if the public school is going to teach about, read this book that has graphic pornographic, well, we said rape, I'll say pornographic drawings of oral stimulation, anal stimulation, and like kids are reading this stuff and learning about, do this to self-actualize yourself, do all of this stuff. I would prefer, look, if you're going to talk about it in public schools, just say, here's how the plumbing works. Don't rape people. Ask your parents what other rules go after that. And I do believe there are other rules. I don't think it's the job of public schools to be teaching those.
See, that to me kind of shows that like deep down you still see consent as the only necessary condition, because like if you think the telos of sex is, for instance, it being ordered towards procreation and pair bonding. Wait, sorry, let me finish.
Go ahead.
It would be a huge oversight to then say a public school system in sex ed, it's totally fine, like so long as they only teach consent. Sure, in an ideal world, they would teach the things you want. You would love to live in a, theocracy, whatever. But for instance, like if you think the actual telos of sex is that, then consent would not be nearly enough. It'd be as reckless, sorry, one more second. It'd be as reckless, for instance, as like a school teaching kids that a knife is just something, like a butcher's knife is just something that you hold with your hand. You'd be like, well, no, the point of a knife, like the telos of a knife, is to cut things. Therefore, you're actually doing something really harmful, reckless, and dangerous. If you don't teach a kid what that's for, you're like setting them up for danger. If you don't tell them the primary purpose of a knife, you know what I mean? You're leaving out something which is the primary purpose of it. So how could you say consent is necessary, or consent is the only necessary thing to be taught, or so long as we're not a theocracy? Like, how is that not just like extremely harmful?
I am making a prudential argument about what I can get away with as a matter of public policy that could be taught in schools. Right now, what's taught is horrifying. So I would love to teach, like they did back in the 90s that I was a kid, here's your promise ring, save sex for marriage. Though I have my own critiques of purity culture, I feel like a lot of that disproportionately blamed women. It actually was like, I think a lot of sex ed, like back in the day or in the 90s, was kind of like, we had this program called DARE. Are you familiar with DARE? Just say no to drugs. And it turns out it made kids more likely to do drugs. It was a horribly counterproductive program. And I think a lot of abstinence-only education suffered from a similar fate when people were told, just say no to sex, just wait until marriage. I would love something that taught, like, yes, teaching sexual virtue. I would love to teach that for children to be taught that. The problem is I'm going to get people who will say part of sexual virtue is people exploring disordered sexual acts and thruples and all these other things. So in order, if it's necessary for me to lose things I like to keep out the bad stuff, that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. But here, my problem with you though is,
but why not promote it being in marriage over consent? Like, why is the consent thing
I'm
you're
happy
never
to do
willing to trade off on?
Fine. I'm fine with schools going back to sex is for marriage, and we'll have the fights and the public policy fights. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to teach everybody.
But if you could only pick between one of the necessary conditions for you being implemented in sex ed, between whether it be, because like you said, you have to compromise since we're in a secular society, why choose consent over, for instance, it being ordered towards procreation as the thing to be taught? If both are necessary conditions, why do you even have that prejudice towards consent being the more necessary condition? Like, where does that even come from?
I don't have a prejudice towards that. And I don't think this is a helpful line, because we're talking about what I would want taught in like a public school or something. Like, I think that families should be instructing children about sexual values. I always get really nervous about non-family members engaging children with questions of sexuality, grooming and other weird things. I get really concerned about that stuff. But going back to what you were saying about self-actualization and things like that, it sounds like, I think that's really suspicious that it's like, well, this is one of the highest values for where I think sex is good and moral. I can't really define it. It just sort of sounds like self-actualization, that's okay if we know what we're actually supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Like, if you don't know what your goal as a human being is, then you have no end that you're striving for. If it's like, just be who you are, like, that's a horrible lesson. But if self-actualization means, as a human being, my goal is to be courageous and have the cardinal virtues, to be courageous, to be prudent, to be temperate, and to be just. And that's what I'm made for. I don't always act that way, but I can move towards that end.
I think I could still have an idea of what it moves towards. Like, for instance, I think you would agree it obviously isn't congruent with self-actualization for a woman to, for instance, stay with a man who beats her. So I could still like obviously articulate like which things clearly
Right,
aren't,
because she
and
wasn't
which things
made. She
clearly
was
are.
not made to be beaten.
Like
she was made
when
to
I
be
say
loved.
it's
So you're
more
correct.
congruent with self-actualization for her to have casual sex with a man who thinks the world of her than unprotected sex with a husband who beats her.
No, because
I don't
he's
think
using-
you think, well, that's a weird definition of self-actualization. Like it's very clear what it is.
No, because the man who beats her is using her as an object to satisfy his wrath. And the man who has casual sex with her,
By your view, is also using her as
yes,
an
to
object.
satisfy his
Yeah.
lust, because he engages in. If it's casual sex, then if he's going to go and do that, then he's not thinking about this. I'm fully giving myself to you and only you for my whole life. And if a child comes from this, I'm going to be here for them. You know, a poet once said that some people are hit it and quit it, but I more stay and play. Do you know who said that? Sir Mix-a-Lot. So just someone to bring into the conversation. But that's why I would say that it is abusive
I
in
don't
that way.
think
Casual sex is that the guy gets to objectify her and then bail out the door, and she has the disproportionate consequences from that.
No, okay, we're talking about two different things. I think, for instance, it's unethical for a guy to lead a girl on and then like hit it and quit it and not tell her where he's going. That's different than the idea of like this girl like actually desires hooking up with her male best friend, but they know it's just like a sometimes they do it type of thing. I think that's totally different than him like bolting out the door.
She's objectifying herself when she does that.
I don't think, like, this is also really different. I don't think sexualization or sex through a medium of lust or transaction is incompatible with self-actualization. So we can get into that as well. But on the cheating stuff, I had another, like, question for you. I know you don't like my hypotheticals, but I have one more.
Well, then I get to ask you about your rules about cheating. I want to know about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll answer your hypothetical, then I want you to give me the rules for cheating.
Okay.
All right.
Imagine there's like an island or society or whatever of like 100 men or women, and all the men of the society adhere to very like chauvinist gender politics. They all believe that, you know,
So it's Red Pill Island.
Red Pill Island, and
That'd be a reality show.
yeah, they all believe
Here's
that
what we're going to do here on my island.
they all believe that the relationship should be polygynous, so like one-sided opens in which the men can sleep with, you know, commit adultery while the women can't. So the women who
Well, that's not the definition of polygamy. Polygyny, because it's stable bonds. Like the red pillars, when they say reverse monogamy, they're saying the guy can just run around and screw whoever. And he's not even, it's the guy can have casual sex and he has a wife. That's not what traditionally polygyny was. You had multiple wives.
Okay, sorry. One-sided opens, a more like red pill conception of it, in which they're going to be.
He's got an unlimited hall pass.
He has an unlimited hall pass.
Okay.
He's not going to budge on this, right? This is how the island works. So women can either enter marriages with these men in which they're pretty much signing up to be in one-sided open relationships, or they can opt out and perhaps just masturbate. Is it unhealthy or wrong for the women of this island to all forgo marriage and simply masturbate?
Here is my answer to that. Both would be wrong, and honestly, those unions would not even qualify as marriage. Because so as a Catholic in the Catholic Church, we don't believe in divorce. So we believe, like, look, Jesus said, if you divorce your spouse and remarry, you commit adultery. What God has joined, let no man put asunder. So when you get married and the two become one flesh, once it's consummated in sex, you have become one. That can't be undone. It's like you can bake a cake, you can't get the ingredients back. Now it's one. So my point there is, so we don't believe in divorce. But have you ever heard of annulments? Okay. So an annulment, or a declaration of nullity, is a way of saying that what you thought was a valid marriage was actually not valid. In order to be validly married, there are a set of conditions that have to be met. Okay, so you have to freely give yourself to the other person. You can't be like shotgun wedding, marry my daughter or else. You have to freely give consent. And you can't have any impediments that would make it impossible for you to freely consent. You can't have a psychological defect that makes you mentally unwell, that you don't really know what you're doing or fully understand the gravity. There's a whole lot of other ones. You can't be close blood relation or adoptive relations, a lot of ones. One of them is you have to have the intent of fulfilling the bonds of marriage. And the bonds of marriage are basically that you are monogamous and you're open to life. So if you go into it without even planning to be monogamous, and I know somebody, this happened to a friend of mine, where this was like way back in the day, like in the 70s, what do you expect, right? It was a friend's mom. So the mom marries this guy in the 70s. He's a rich, Ron Burgundy-esque, famous 70s guy that the women love. And she's like lucky to be married to him. And then he's like, hey, my office smells of rich mahogany. And also, I'm still going to see my girlfriends, And she's like, okay. Even before the marriage started, you can see, he's not intending to fulfill an essential element to it, which is monogamy.
Okay.
So she was granted an annulment because he never intended to actually marry her. Exclusivity, monogamous, full gift of self. So in that example you gave, it would just be choosing between basically fornication or masturbation. And I would say that one might be more disordered.
Which one?
Non-procreative. But however, there are other elements beyond just disordered. There can be injury. So fornication, I would say, could make it more of a grievous offense overall because there's more potential injury to people, such as a child that could come into this messed up union.
Zero out the children, just have it be adultery without risk of like health issues or children. Is it still worse? Is it still better for her to opt for masturbation instead of these one-sided marriages?
I don't believe in saying another important position as a Christian is I do not believe a person is ever in a position where the only two choices they can make are evil and evil. A person can always choose good no matter what position they're in.
You were able to tell me with confidence
Just
rape
because
is morally worse than fornication.
Yeah, something could be.
You could still order the evils. So why can't you tell me which is worse? For them to masturbate or enter these one-sided arrangements?
Because in theology, there is a branch of theology called casuistry. This was something very popular in the 17th and 18th century where theologians were doing exactly what you're saying, where they would run these big flow charts to try to sort which sins are worse than other sins. And it became almost impossible to make a coherent framework, and people would start to lose their minds, like, should I do this? Should I do that? So I don't know how to sort what is worse or not worse. One might have a disordered end, one has other victims involved. It's not a game I'm going to play about, well, here's the bad options, let's choose the least bad. I'm just going to do the good options.
Which one would you want for like a daughter to end up in a one-sided open marriage or the latter choice?
What, where she chooses not to get married, but she engages in the sin of masturbation? Eventually, this is almost turning into your equivalent of the would you rather have a thought daughter or a gay son?
No, the point.
It's almost turning into that.
The reason I of all these is just to point out again that I think intuitively and also the rational, logically, we again only see consent, respect, and self-actualization as a necessary factor, even though I can't necessarily spell out preemptively what exactly is self-actualization.
Fine.
It's very clear to you, I think, on an intuitive level that it would be more congruent with her self-actualization, for instance, to masturbate than enter a one-sided open.
At best, I could say it's less bad than her engaging in some kind of counterfeit marriage, even though it might be more disordered in one certain end. But I'm not going to get hung up in cataloging which evils are more or less worse.
Because the reason I say it is because...
No, I want to go... No. I want to go now because I entertained this enough. I want to ask about your rules about infidelity because you basically said, did you say earlier there's really no difference between sex that's done for lust and sex that's done for love?
So I didn't say there's no difference. I said I wouldn't say that sex done through a medium of love is inherently more respectful towards that woman or congruent with self-actualization than sex through a medium of lust or transaction. I could spell it out for why I have that belief of why I don't think sex work is inherently more degrading. Obviously, the actual skin trade is horrible for women because it's just a veneer for sex trafficking most of the time. But I think as a concept, it's not necessarily more degrading for a woman to, sell sex or do it through a medium of lust.
Okay, so
removing coercion or her getting her hopes up about the guy coming back the next morning, her having full informed consent and desire and all those things. Yeah, I don't think it's more degrading.
Here's the statement. Sex that is given because you love the other person more than anyone else, because you love them, that is morally superior to having sex so you can make money. Now, is that statement true or false?
No.
It's false.
No, that's just the opposite of my argument, yeah.
I know, and that's super... So what I would say is then, you engaging in relations with your future husband, and then you going and having, let's say you had relations with somebody else while you're married, they're morally equivalent?
No, one's committing adultery, which is wrong because you're breaking like the contract you enter into with your spouse, which is to ideally like symmetrically mitigate their jealousy and stuff like that. And I wouldn't even say that necessarily means both are equal in general. Like one could be better and that could be more enjoyable. It could be more, it could make you happier and all those things. I'm just saying on its face, I don't think one is necessarily more moral. You could still prescribe that someone does one over the other because maybe it'll lead them to be happier and all those things. But I'm saying I don't believe that just because a woman like consensually gets naked for strangers, that she's degrading herself versus getting naked for her husband.
Yeah, I feel like you
yeah.
have to create this framework to justify what you do.
No.
And most people seeing this would just say that's totally bonkers.
I mean, I've been putting this
bonkers.
out there. I started on OnlyFans like years after I was doing social media full time. I was a virgin until I met my fiance. Like I was putting this out there as a virgin that I still think this. So none of it's contingent on me just trying to like justify my career.
No, because you're going to get married.
Yeah.
But you're still going to get naked for other guys even after you're married, right?
I wouldn't like quit my OnlyFans, yes.
You're going to get naked for other guys. I would say, but let's say this. Let's say, guys, Bob is married to Catherine, okay? And Catherine has this fun coworker, Ted. He's just a really fun guy. And Catherine sends some naked selfies to Ted. Like, hey, this must be cute. What do you think? Hasn't Catherine cheated here? She's unfaithful in getting naked for another guy when she's married to Bob.
Yeah, so you could say it transgresses monogamy. So for instance, the reason that I think porn use is wrong in relationships is because I think it constitutes infidelity, and so would you. And a lot of people think that's contradictory, for instance, that I like do porn, but I'm against porn use in relationships, which I think is very like unnuanced, right? Like I could be pro alcohol but be against like drunk driving or against pregnant women drinking, right? Just because I'm pro a substance doesn't mean I think I would prescribe it to every single person, and there's still instances where it's obviously like morally unconscionable for people to engage with it, right? So I don't know where people think that like...
Would you be willing to do this? Would you be willing to ask your users if they're married and if they're I don't know what they're called on OnlyFans. I have a Patreon.
Subs. Subscribers.
Okay. Would you be willing to ask your subs, hey, if you're married, could you unsub from me, please? Would you be willing to ask them that?
Yeah, I mean, like, if you look at my social media profile, like, it's all about just me saying, like, I don't think guys should watch porn in relationships. It's definitely not, like, I'm not two-faced
then
about this.
you'd have no problem asking them, like, a little message, like, hey, thanks for subscribing. By the way, if you're married, I would really prefer...
I would have a problem with it, not because I disagree with the sentiment, but because I think part of the fantasy of OnlyFans is not that it caters to men in relationships, but the fantasy is you're playing, like, this sort of character. So I think to give this sort of, like, sterile message to someone on an OnlyFans would, like, break a fantasy. Not because I want those types of customers, but that's why I'd be against it, like... From the performance standpoint.
Do you feel bad at all for the misery it causes a lot of those spouses when these men go to see you for this fantasy? Do you feel bad about that at all?
I feel bad for it, but not in a guilt way. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I sympathize for them. But again,
to quote Jay Sherman, the critic, how do you sleep at night? On top of piles of money with many beautiful
You know how
ladies.
I sleep at night is that, like, prior to OnlyFans exploding in popularity, like, I was someone who always had, like, a vehement rule. Like, I will not date a guy who watches pornography. Every friend, boyfriend, any person
Wait, you said that before OF or when you started working?
Before. I started in
You said
OF.
you would not date before OF. You said you wouldn't date a guy.
So before OF, like, I started my OF around 23. I'm 26 now. So, like, before OF, like I said, I was a virgin until I was 26. I had a rule, and I would date a lot of Christian conservatives as well because I liked guys who did value, like, pair bonding and stuff. I had a rule where I would not date a guy who watches pornography.
Okay,
and the entire culture
great.
says that's unrealistic, that's unreasonable, it's purely physical, it's meaningless, whatever. I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying I sleep at night knowing the only reason people started pearl clutching about porn use being a form of infidelity is once girls like me started turning a profit off of it. But before it, they were very eager to say, that's not cheating, it's purely physical. So now people are like, how do you sleep at night when you ruin marriages? I'm like, we didn't say that to strippers, even though the most frequent patrons of strip clubs are married. We didn't say that about, like, Hooters girls, even though I always see, like, husbands there and stuff like that, and their girlfriends have to sit in the cuck chair being okay with them, like, gawking at other girls. well, right? Like we only do it when girls like me seem to like turn a profit off of it, turn clout off of it, right? But they had no problem with, like, again, what 87% of guys watch porn every week, right? Like all these guys did it and they told their girlfriend to look the other way. Like I think your moral panic over it is more sincere since you're against it both ways. But would you agree that most people suddenly only started caring about how porn use affects relationships once OnlyFans exploded?
No, because people have been crusading against pornography for decades, including feminists.
Yeah,
also.
radfems and tradcons, but everyone else.
And Christian conservatives.
Yeah.
Sure, because most people who are just of the world are degenerate. And so they'll make all kinds of rationalizations and inconsistent standards for themselves. And I'm very big in calling it out for everybody. Absolutely. But I think like the guys getting like mad, I think the guys getting mad about you making a bunch of money or like some of these OF girls making a bunch of money.
I think that's 100% what it cashes out to for most of it. Not for you, because
here's
you're
why
consistent and you've been doing it for a long time.
Here's why they get mad. When they hear...
Financial envy.
No.
Yes.
No, because when I find out J.K. Rowling made $1 billion with Harry Potter, I'm not mad because I'm a Gryffindor and I have honor. But also, I am like, oh, this really enriched the world. It really made people better. I dropped my phone like 2 hours ago. Now I can find it and keep it back up here to see the time. Like, I'm not mad that like Steve Jobs made a ton of money like making an iPhone, like making stuff that like benefited the world. I think these guys get mad because deep down they are ashamed of what they do. It's a sign. No, let me finish, and you can hop in. Deep down, to have to resort to paying some lady to do this fantasy that isn't real, to do this to get sexual pleasure. Deep down, they are ashamed. It's why they don't publicly talk about it. They don't publicly brag about it. It's not a hobby you share with other people. They're ashamed of that, seeing that like, oh, this person, I have done something that I know is shameful and is deeply unmasculine and weak of me. And they want to lash out at the person. They want to blame somebody for their deeply unmasculine pit they found themselves in. Much the same way, like if a guy was using drugs, and he uses drugs and he feels like crap afterwards, and then he sees this drug dealer drive by in a BMW. Like if you see a regular guy with a BMW, yes, some people are very envious. That happens. But other people are like, well, whatever. He's working hard. Da da da. But I'm like, this guy made me feel like crap. And I've been sucked into this, and now he's doing well. He's been able to do so well off of me feeling like crap. I think that's what a lot of these OF guys feel like. Subs. Mm-hmm. Okay?
I think in general, men only claimed victimhood to porn once, again, girls started turning a profit. Like they're literally like the women they caricaturize of conveniently crying grape after a guy gets rich and famous and then like rescinding consent after the fact. Because again, prior to OF, men didn't use this language and rhetoric of victimhood to describe their engagement with sex work. They literally, like, you go on forums and if women say, hey, I'm uncomfortable with my fiance going to a strip club as a quote unquote bachelor party, people said, get over it. It's his last night of freedom. If it was the language of victimhood and they're so ashamed of it, then why go engage with sex work? No, I know you agree, but I'm saying here's why I agree. When it's literally a rite of passage for men to engage with sex work before tying the knot, that clearly it wasn't they go, I'm ashamed. I'm really ashamed I have to do this. Clearly it's something celebratory for them to engage with sex work. Would you agree?
No, it is shameful because nobody goes...
But they didn't see it. You agree? You're saying it's shameful, yes. Would you agree that they didn't see it as shameful?
They feel it that way too.
When at their bachelor parties? No, they didn't.
But the reason that it's only done at a bachelor party and not just like regular Thursday night hanging out is trying to create these elaborate rituals where you're allowed an excuse to do like a shameful thing. Whereas just in general, if people's pornography stash is found, they tend to be highly embarrassed by it. But I think they don't get mad at like strippers because when a guy goes to a strip club,
because they think the stripper's broke and getting beaten by her pimp, and like someone like me is more untouchable.
The way they feel about it is like, I feel like crap. Well, they feel like crap too, so we all feel like crap together, and they don't have anyone to easily lash out at. So my feeling is just basically, look, the idea of what you're saying, well, sex is... Your view of it with this self-actualization kind of thing, it robs sex of any of its intrinsic meaning. And so when it does that, it just can't be an objectively meaningful thing to share with other people. If infidelity comes down to just, I feel like this is your position, like, well, adultery is wrong because you make a promise to be monogamous and one ought not break their promises. I think that's kind of your position.
Yeah, I'm not anti-polyamory so long as it's not coerced. Like, or I am against it in the sense that a lot of the times it's usually like men asking for it, and I feel like the women will just go along with it. Like one of my good friends, like she was dating a guy for 10 years, planned to marry him, and then one day he like broke up with her and she was crying, and he was like, okay, but then you need to let me like hook up with other women. So she agreed. So I think if it's done in that way, I'm against it. But let's say the woman, like again, you could like read into her brain and she genuinely wants it free from any type of desperation of thinking, well, he won't leave me or it mitigates his chances of cheating on me. I'm not against polyamory. So I'm just against adultery because it breaks that like contract you made with each other, not because I think sex is sacred, right?
No, but here's the problem, because if sex is not sacred, then that promise becomes a meaningless promise. For example, like imagine if you got married to your husband, right? The guy you're gonna get married to, and he said, okay, now that we're married, you can never play tennis with anyone except me. Do you promise? You'd be like, no, that's an unreasonable promise. What are you talking about? That anyone who would say you can only do X with me is usually a sign of a possessive, abusive person, often. But we make an exception for sex, where it's not just it's okay, it's just patently obvious that's the starting point everyone should agree with, that we shouldn't change. And that only makes sense if sex is sacred, has that objective meaning.
I do have to let a chat come through, and I want to redirect the convo here in just a moment. We have Ogle.
Ogle_America.fund donated $100.
Thank you, Ogle. Appreciate it.
Self-actualization is being the best version of oneself.
Hang tight for just a
Anyway,
moment.
hide your dogs, hide your male best friends. Also, I disagree with both people's views, but they're well matched, so this is a good debate.
Ogle, thank you very much for your message there. Guys, if you guys want to get a message in, $10 display, $100 read. Ogle also gifted 50 whatever memberships to the whatever viewers here on YouTube. Thank you very much, Ogle. Guys, put a W in the chat for Ogle there. You said you wanted to use the restroom?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to do it super quick. And we have, just so you know, Caleb gifted 5 whatever memberships. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you guys. We have some chats coming up here. Actually Religious, thank you for your super chat. BB the Aussie, thank you for your super chat. Appreciate it. And another one from the man. Thank you for your super chat there. Appreciate it. Guys, if you're enjoying the stream and you'd like to see more debates, hit the like button. Like the video, guys, if you're enjoying this stream and you want to see more debates. We're going to get right back into it with a prompt change here in just a moment as soon as she returns. And yeah, also, guys, support us over there on Twitch, twitch.tv/whatever. Drop us a follow and a Prime sub if you have one. If you want to go ahead and pull it up. Yeah, there it is, twitch.tv/whatever. Drop us a follow and a Prime sub. Let me shout some of you guys out. We have Chris, thank you for the tier 1. Elix, thank you for the Prime. Trainee, thank you for the Prime. Avery, Q&A, thank you for the Prime. Trent, I did want to, I heard something you were saying earlier about, I guess I could engage you on this while Farah is gone. You said that you should never commit adultery to, I don't know, if you were to be paid a certain amount of money, that money could go to save 300 people in Africa or something along those lines.
Yeah, you shouldn't do evil, that which is intrinsically evil, so good may come from it.
Can I ask you, is there any circumstance where could the opposing thing that you are receiving be sufficient enough to give an allowance to commit this evil act, in this case, adultery? So, for example, let's say it was to prevent a nuclear holocaust. Under that circumstance, could you commit adultery?
No, because but this will come. But here's the thing: this is a big clash between ethics. Okay?
Right.
So it's like one will be kind of more rule based, like there's things we ought to do and ought not do.
Yeah.
And another one will be consequentialism. It's just, well, let's just do what has the best consequences. So you can create those examples where it's like, oh, well, committing adultery will stop a nuclear holocaust, therefore we ought to do that. It doesn't take much to concoct a scenario
Sure.
where you do horrible. For example, there was a short story written by, I believe it was Ursula Le Guin back in the 70s or 80s.
The one who leave behind Omelas.
The ones who walk away from Omelas. Very good. And so the story talks about this beautiful paradise of a place, and everyone's happy, and anything you want is there that will make you happy. It's a beautiful place to live. There's just one catch. There is a room with a decrepit, malnourished 6-year-old child in the dark who is constantly in fear and shuddering and shivering and suffering. The child even lives in its own waste, is scared of the mop in the room. And so Le Guin's story then says, and this is, but it's like thousands of people live in this village and they're all perfectly happy. It's a paradise. But she says, and there's some who walk away from Omelas, who cannot stand that it's not worth it to them to have that happiness, knowing that it's at the price of this evil. And the question then, what it raises for us as people, would you be a person who would live in Omelas? You're perfectly happy your whole life, you'll never suffer. Or would you walk away? I would walk away.
Brian
Well,
would stay.
I'd love to be Rambo and rescue the kid
I
myself.
said Brian would
Nope.
stay.
I would stay. She's
No,
saying I would stay.
no, are you serious? Are you
Oh no, I was repeating what she
Okay.
said. I wasn't.
Would you walk
saying
away?
that. Yeah,
Good for you.
yeah.
Good. We're making progress.
But like I was thinking more so.
I'd be Rambo and I'd go rescue the guy. Don't worry, I'm getting you out of here.
So okay, but you wouldn't. Anyways, here it's besides the point.
No,
of my
but
question. I
you
just
give the
wanted-
examples, but once again, like in any example, it's like, what are you going to bite the bullet on? But for me, like honestly, as like a Christian, when it comes to like, at the end of the day, this life is not our only life.
Yeah.
We have an unending life because we're made it in the image of God. We have immortal souls, and the question is, in choosing to do good, we are always aligning ourselves with that which is the ultimate good. There's nothing in this life that can give us perfect happiness. Nothing. But if we choose to align ourselves with God, who is that ultimate good, then we're ordered towards that here in the next life. And that is what given saints the ability to persevere horrible suffering without having to inflict evil on
Well,
others.
I suppose a really quick, simple question would be, so maybe not a worldwide, global nuclear holocaust, but would you commit adultery to prevent, say, the entirety of Europe from being nuked?
Well, if I'm willing to let the Earth go, I'm going to let Europe go too. They
But you
always
wouldn't-
scam me on ketchup.
So even
anyway.
if- wait,
a
what
euro for ketchup. Give
So
me a
even if
break.
this
or the bathroom.
includes, but okay, if it is the global nuclear holocaust, and this includes, so everyone dies, including you,
Yeah.
you wouldn't commit adultery under that circumstance.
No, I'm not gonna murder babies. I'm not gonna, because then it becomes, well, would you it's like, well, this is the one that would be a fun one. Well, this will reveal the monsters in the chat, but it's like, would you nuke Africa if the only choice was the whole world would be nuked? Would you nuke Europe if the only alternative is to save the whole world? You can concoct all these scenarios. That's why for me, it's just, don't do evil. Don't commit intrinsically evil things.
So you wouldn't check out a woman in a bikini to save Europe because that's adultery.
Europe will be fine. No, I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wait,
I'm not going to do
would-
that. I am not going to sin. I am not going to sin, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
But the extension of that would be, if you don't check out the woman, then all of Europe gets wiped out.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. If I were to check out the woman, well, you can do that all you want. But then the thing is, if the argument is you should do evil to prevent greater evil, then you're staying in Omelas.
I think it's a bit different, but what about this? Let's say you have...
Or what if they said, hey, Brian, if you don't live here, actually everybody can't stay in Omelas anymore. That's the problem. If that's your principle of it's okay to do evil as long as you prevent greater evil, then you can do all, for this, if it prevented Europe from being nuked, would you essay a woman?
I mean... that's very...
Now we've got hesitation.
Well, because the optics of saying, yes, I would do that are obviously terrible, and it's a disgusting thing that I would never want to do.
Adultery you would just do anyway. What do you mean?
Adultery seems like cheating on somebody seems like a lesser harm than essaying somebody. But how about this, Trent? Let's say you were in World War II, Germany or Europe, and the Gestapo comes knocking at your door, and you are actually protecting a Jewish family, and they ask you a question: are you harboring any enemies of the state? this Jewish family in your, basement or something.
Yeah.
And so you could lie, which would be a
Right.
sin, right? So would you?
Well,
so would
keep
you?
going. The lying to the Nazi at the door.
Would you lie to the Nazi at the door in that circumstance?
I'd look him dead in the eye and say, "Yeah, I've got a whole family up in the attic. Get the fuck out of here. What do you want?" Okay, sir.
Wait, well,
I wish I could get away with just there. I would just be like, it's kind of like a lie through a bluff. This is actually a big debate. A lot. Oh, and by the way, if people get mad, like Trent said, naughty words are bad. No, I say don't be abusive to people. I don't mind curse words when the opportunity presents itself as justifiable. In moral theology, there are two debates on this. Actually, it's a debated question.
Yeah.
There is a school of thought that says saying something that is not true, is intrinsically evil. Okay? And so you may never do it. There is another school of thought that says it is not intrinsically evil, that if you were to say something that's not true, essentially what you're doing is you're causing damage to the person's beliefs, but you can cause damage to a person if it's for their greater good as a whole. So for example, a surgeon can cause damage to your, like let's say you're having an allergic reaction and you're choking to death. A surgeon could cut open your trachea to save your life.
Yeah.
So here I'm causing damage to the Nazi's beliefs to prevent him from committing the evil of murder. So I am not fully, and this is a very complicated moral theology question, so I'm not fully resolved on it, but in moral theology, those are the two. Another option you could also do is you could use mental reservations. You can use things that deceive but are not straight up lies, for example.
Gotcha.
But that is so the example you give. It's a divided question in moral theology.
Can I respond to what he was saying before I went to the bathroom? Because he said a lot of stuff.
Let me. I do have to redirect the convo here a little bit, but
You have to?
I have to. I must. Farha, what are the aspects of feminism that you disagree with Trent on?
Okay. Can I first respond to the last thing he said? Because he said something.
What was it?
He was saying before I went to the bathroom that because it's reasonable to expect your partner to not have sex with other people, but not reasonable to expect your friend to not do whatever activity with your friends, that implies signposts that sex is sacred and ought to be reserved for like marriage.
Why don't we get to that later? Let's
Okay,
take
I'm
that.
gonna
Well, write it down.
then.
The question
Then
is
write it down.
Like when does polyamory become infidelity? Basically.
When it breaks the contract made, so like it could be infidelity if it's like emotional.
Or what? When is it okay to have sex with someone who's not your spouse? That's the question we disagree on.
Yeah.
When is it okay if you're married? When is it okay to have sex with someone who's not your spouse? My answer is never.
So yeah,
never.
We can come back to that later, but
That's
for now. I guess this question is open to the both of you. What are the aspects of feminism that you disagree with each other on? And perhaps Farha, you can go first on that.
Honestly, I feel like I need to hear you guys first to like jog my brain of like.
Well, do you want to put out some? What are
ideas?
some examples
Yeah.
of feminist topics? You want to just throw some
That you
out there
think I would
and see
disagree
what we
with, 'cause-
agree or disagree?
Well, I guess first, and I don't think we ever really did this. What is feminism?
Sure.
So I guess what is even the definition of feminism? But I mean, in your opening statement, you laid out a whole bunch of things.
Well, I guess
Perhaps
if you had to define it
perhaps
in a
if I could
sentence
look
or
at
two.
your notes, I could prompt you on one of the things that you listed in your opening statement. But
Yeah, I mean, this is more about like like sexual ethics and marriage and stuff. But my opening statements from here
okay.
to there, and
Well, here, while I'm looking
the
at
bottom.
that, do you guys want to
I-
flesh out the definition of feminism?
There's a lot of definitions, but I'll throw a few out
Well,
there.
throw out yours, and then Farha can give hers.
Yeah, like I said, I don't ascribe that label to myself. So it's kind of like, for example, like I think that people of color and white people have the same intrinsic dignity, and racism is wrong. And so white people should not racially oppress people of color. People of color should not racially oppress white people, which we do see in some parts of the world, things in South Africa, things like that. Does that make me like a racialist? No, I just think they should be treated equally. Or I think children have very basic rights and dignity, but I'm not like a childist. I just think we should not be bad to kids. But kids are different. We treat them differently. So I like the definition from Marie Scheer that was offered earlier. Feminism is a radical notion that women are people. A common thing, a lot of people will say, well, feminism is opposition to patriarchy. So feminism is opposition to male rules and social standards and things like that. And though honestly, as a Christian, I do believe in some forms of patriarchy. Like I think that in a marriage, a husband should lead. I think there has to be a leader in the marriage, but I don't think the wife is bound to do anything he says, whether it's evil or irrational, but he has a duty to lead in the marriage, and she should be obedient to that within reason. So I think that there's some forms like is opposition to patriarchy. It's like, then you got to define what patriarchy is. And that opens a whole other can of worms. So those are two ways, often defined as the rights of women, or opposition to patriarchy, but then it's like, well, we have to define patriarchy because there's some versions that like people can agree with or not agree with. My favorite definition of feminism is the joke one. It's men and women are equal, but women are better, which would be an example of really bad feminism that's actually misanthropy. That's actually just man hatred, which is common among many people who identify as feminists. Right. Just like people who identify as men's rights activists, there's a fair number of them who are they are misogynists. They say they hate women. They really don't like women.
Misandry. I think misanthropy is like...
Or that's humanity. Yeah. Sorry. Misandrists. Yeah, they hate men. Misanthropy is...
hating humans.
Hating which is a more acceptable thing. I think, who was it? Somebody did a joke about this. They said like, if somebody says, "Oh, I hate black people," it's like, "What's wrong with you?" But if you're like, "Oh, I hate men," if you're like, "Oh, I hate people," it's like, huh, you're telling me.
Farha, do you think women are better than men?
You would have to give like a specific category. I think women
in general
tend to be more empathetic. I don't even know if that's necessarily hardwired. I don't think that's like, it's necessary to discuss whether it is, but I think like, when it comes to oftentimes morality, I think women can often be morally better. I don't think that gives them more human worth, though. So when you say, are women better, I would say they do better things, but are they better categorically?
Yeah, that's like asking, is New York near? We'd be like, near what? So it's like asking, are women better?
That's like reading my opening statement. That was what...
Well, came up with. No, it was in response.
But I'd
Trent.
answer that. Like I think men and women are better at certain traits, activities in just different ways. Like women tend to be better at linguistic tasks and multitasking, and men tend to have better spatial reasoning, which is why my wife will ask me, "What'd you guys talk about at the party?" And I'm like, I don't remember, but I can nail video games and driving. You mean being good?
Yes.
Moral?
Yes.
No, men and women, because they're each made, and this is actually why I love being Christian, is that as a Christian, since we believe all people are made in the image and likeness of God, we categorically reject any kind of sexism or racism that says a group of people are morally inferior. Because what makes us all moral is that we equally possess the image of God. And so now if you don't believe that, you might believe that certain humans are morally superior to others. But no, as a Christian, as a Catholic, I firmly reject racism, sexism. And if you look in the history of the Catholic Church, there's probably more canonized female saints than male saints.
Well, one of the things in Farha's opening is she says, frankly, I struggle to see how men en masse respect the women they supposedly claim to, their girlfriends, wives, and the mothers of their children, because despite an increasingly in vogue anti-feminist zeitgeist, I don't believe, Farha doesn't believe, that sex grounded in love or marriage is inherently more respectful or self-actualizing for women than sex grounded in lust or transaction.
We can get into like that specific component.
I think that's the saddest. That's the saddest thing I heard.
Like people,
that's the saddest thing I heard.
I can flesh out my argument for it.
You fleshed it out more, and it was even sadder.
Further, another point she makes: your husband is the man in your life most likely to rape you. Now, is there a statistic on this, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I don't have like the
source
right on me. I can look it up.
Yeah, in the paragraph or in parentheses right next to it, you say stats. So the person most likely to rape, is this like based off the U.S. or is this
no?
Like
I mean, the way you could be phrasing it like this, which I think is a disingenuous way to phrase it. It's like telling a child, "Hey, man, parents suck. Did you know that parents are the ones who are most likely to abuse you? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's probably true because parents spend the most time with kids, but parents in principle are awesome. And like the love thing, like, I gotta ask you a question. Here's another statement. Is a parent loving their child because they just authentically will the good for this child and want to sacrifice, and they just care and cherish and love this child, so they care for the child for that reason? Is that morally superior to someone who cares for a child because they want a paycheck?
Yes. So to be clear, when I'm saying love in this, maybe I should have been more clear. I'm specifically talking about romantic love. I'm not talking, for instance, about like, I love my best friend. So I'm specifically talking about like romantic marital love. So obviously when I say things like loving grape, like, is the type that tends to be more protected by law enforcement. Like the obvious like juxtaposition is supposed to be like loving as in like
how do you define love? Because I don't divide it this way. What do you think love is?
Well, kind of like what you were saying earlier of like how the difference between romantic love and friendship love, possessiveness is more of a feature in it. Like you even admitted like before we pivoted topics that it would make sense. It's congruent with romantic love to forbid your partner, for instance, from like hooking up with other people. It's not a feature of platonic love to forbid your friend from befriending other people. Having other friends. So it is more of a feature of specifically romantic love than platonic love for it to be exclusive.
We need to go to the basement though to keep going.
You were saying why split up the types of love, but even you split it up by going romantic love by nature or ideally should be more exclusive than platonic love, right? So you would also split
love has a core concept and it's going to be manifested in different ways. It's also hard because we only have one word for love. In other languages, they have multiple words. So in Greek, there's at least 4 words for love. So you have eros, romantic love, storge, philios, the love of friendship, and then you have one, the highest of them, agape, which is just self-sacrificial love. Mm-hmm. The love when you would just give your life for a friend or even for like a stranger. So the core concept of love, I would say, is love is putting, willing the good for another. To love someone is to will their good. And another way I could phrase it is this: love is when you put other people's needs ahead of your wants. And so for me, the opposite of love then is not hate. The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love
is selfishness.
Is used, because instead of putting other people's needs ahead of your wants, you are putting other people's wants. You're putting your wants ahead of other people's needs. So when a guy wants to be sexually aroused by you when he goes to your OF, he is unloving towards his wife, because he puts that want ahead of her need to have monogamy and know that he only cherishes her. And so it's unloving for him to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Trent, what about this? Do you think that feminism, because I know you guys wanted to talk, mostly about sex work, but do you think feminism contributes to sex work in the sense that, as we've seen feminism increase, we've also seen sex work increase? Your thoughts there?
It depends. There's a debate. There has been a debate among feminists really since like the 1970s about this question and prostitution. Feminists will say, look, women should not be treated like objects. Women should be valued just as much as men are valued. And so I think it's a compelling argument that the better form of feminism would say, well, men, to make ends meet, don't have to go and sell their bodies like this. They don't have to be consumed as objects in this way. In many cases, men monetize women who do this. Even the men who run OnlyFans monetize 20% of what you make in order to, they've just found a nice, cleaner way to get a cut off of it. Andrew Tate did that with like cam girls and stuff, which is, deplorable. So there have been feminists who would say, well, some will say, like the raunch feminists will say, yeah, women can, own their bodies, do whatever you want, to hell with anybody. But many others will say, look, the reality is there's some people, and I think you're going to admit this with OnlyFans. There's what, like, oh gosh, like 0.6% of the platform makes like 80% of the money or something. Mm-hmm. The average woman on there makes like $130 a month. Yeah. If she's real, and and we see that like with Patreon. That's similar. Like I have a Patreon. It does decent well to have counsel at Trent. A lot of people will start a Patreon. They might only make $100. And that sucks, but at least they don't have naked pictures of them on the internet forever, which I think is definitely, not worth anything, especially not $100 a month.
So I would advise women, for the most part, not to start OnlyFans. They shouldn't, but not with a moral weight behind it. I think they shouldn't in the sense of like pragmatically, like you pointed out, it's unlikely they're going to fleece a profit unless they're already like a notable like TikToker, Twitch star, etc., whatever it is. And they are going to set themselves up to potentially be like disqualified from a lot of jobs. Again, that doesn't speak to like the morality of it. I still just advise they shouldn't.
Oh, on the sex work thing though, there are feminists who have argued, well, we should keep, I like prostitution. I hate the idea of calling it sex work because if it were work, like we'd say, oh, OSHA regulations say you have to wear all this stuff to prevent fluids getting on you, and we don't really treat it like work. It's not if you can do it if you can do it unconscious, it's not work.
Yeah, and we're both against that. Like same way, like if you're having sex with your wife while she's passed out, like the story I gave you of Randy,
that's also not rape. Sure, no doubt.
But so I don't know why we're using
because in many cases. Prostitution can be done even when people are semi-conscious, when they're on drugs. And they do that because most people, it's not a glamorous thing. Around the world, most people engage in prostitution to avoid things like starvation.
Yeah.
And so it is rife for exploitation and use of people. And so feminists will say, Brian, they'll say, well, you know what, if we can regulate, we don't, it's going to happen anyways, legal or illegal. But then other feminists have argued, well, you could do the Nordic model. So like in Sweden, for example, since 1995, it has been illegal to buy sex, but not illegal to sell it. Because the worry is if you crack down on it, you just arrest these women, they end up back in the system, yada, yada. But they've done it where, okay, we're just going to arrest the buyers, not the sellers. And the women aren't driven underground, and we've reduced the rates. And there was only like one prostitute murdered by some abusive boyfriend there, whereas in like New Zealand and Germany, where it's legal, you have far more murders of prostitutes. So I would say that, yeah, Brian, there are feminists who push for it, and they're totally off base thinking this kind of stuff is empowering when, there was a study that was done by Yang Cho et al. In 2013 that says when you legalize prostitution, sex trafficking increases. They looked at 150 countries. And the reason for that is, if you legalize prostitution, like the rapists and creepy guys go to these people, but there's not enough prostitutes to meet the need. So there's not enough people who say, when I grow up, I want to be a prostitute. There's not enough people to fill that need, so you traffic them from other places. Yeah. When it becomes legal, need goes up, and there's not enough to fill it. You got to traffic people in. Bad news.
Well, perhaps I could ask this, going back to kind of the original prompt change I wanted to do, which is your disagreements on feminism. Farha, you're a feminist. All right. Do you believe that feminism is propagating anti-male sentiment?
Probably, but I don't think that's necessarily bad.
Hold on. You don't think it's a bad thing that feminism is... Would you say that whatever we would perhaps call the opposing side, if it was propagating anti-female, anti-woman...
Red pill. It's to me,
I
it
don't
is...
think red pill is...
No. Go ahead, ask her, and I have my thoughts.
Would you say that whatever the other side, however you would label the other side, whatever it is, whether it's conservatives, whether it's red pill, men's rights advocates, whatever, would you say that propagating anti-female, anti-woman sentiment is bad?
It depends on the type of sentiments. Like that's too much of a blanket statement. Like usually when red pill and anti-feminists propagate like anti-female sentiments, it's usually like just a heart, like a hatred towards women for being women, for not choosing them in the sexual marketplace, for thinking that they're like naturally incompetent, that they're less intelligent, that they ought to be sex slaves of men. Usually when feminists, for instance, like get mad at or like purport like anti-male sentiments, usually it's stuff like anti-sexual violence, anti-sexism. They're against like things like white nationalism. They're against things like the male loneliness discourse, pretty much promoting like an entitlement towards, women's bodies in the dating marketplace. So it depends on the type of anti-sentiment, right?
Well, I don't know if that's a fair characterization. It seems like you're perhaps either you're exaggerating or even fabricating some of the as far as what you would categorize as anti-woman sentiment, and you're omitting and downplaying the anti-male sentiment that you see from the feminist side. But
just think of the common insults from both sides. The common insult from like a red pill side is like dishwasher, roasty, things like that. Roasty, so you're making fun of her genital regions for being like unaesthetic or being like quote unquote ran through. So it's very much like reducing women to their genitals and saying like, you're ran through. It's telling women things like, be wary of the clock, you're going to hit the wall. It's literally telling women each day that goes by, you are losing value as a human being. That's obviously more vitriolic than a woman saying, hey, masculinity can be toxic and adversive towards us as women and even you as men.
Well, but
I don't think
like, how
that's
are those even
fair.
comparable?
The analog to roast beef is when women tell men they got small penises.
Yes, hold on. This is like the go-to attack for men.
The most common insult women say towards men is things like incels, which mean like, haha, you can't get laid. That's nowhere near as vitriolic. And usually it's in retaliation to a guy like promoting, like saying something sexist first. Women don't go out of their ways to just call guys incels. Usually it's like they say something misogynistic and a woman replies and goes, you're an incel, versus guys will just comment on like, you know, streams of girls like, you know, on Twitch streams and just be like roasty 304 dishwasher. Like it's so like, you know, it comes out of nowhere. It's unprompted.
I think you could make that same sort of application towards feminists, and you reference like the genitalia, for example. I mean, the go-to insult for feminists, or even women who aren't feminists, is references to penis size or penises or small dick.
But it's retaliatory. They commented, like, have you ever seen a woman call a man an incel or say small dick energy if it wasn't in response to him saying something sexist? Versus you see men calling women dishwashers, roasties, 304s if they're just living their life out partying. That's most of the time they're saying it.
So you think anti-male sentiment only...
As they're saying, look, she hit the wall.
You think anti-male sentiment only manifests in reaction to some sort of grievance done by men, whereas...
Largely, yeah.
Whereas anti-male sentiment, that
anti-female.
Wait, hold on.
No, she's saying saying anti-male is justified, anti-female is.
I said it's retaliatory. I said it's retaliatory. Justified's different. Justified is saying like, is this productive? Is it constructive? That's a different question. I'm just saying it's retaliatory. Like women aren't just going out there calling men like, can you genuinely envision a woman replying to a stream of a guy just living his life out clubbing and going incel small dick energy?
Oh, absolutely.
No, it's usually first when he does something sexist, or you know what I mean? It's associated with those like sexist subcultures, versus like guys will just comment dishwasher for girls just like dancing at a club and be like 304. This is why women don't deserve rights. I mean, fatherless behavior. Like it comes out of nowhere. That's ridiculous. It's just for women for living a lifestyle.
We can see the same sort of sentiment displayed by women or feminists. For example, I see feminists on TikTok taking videos, seeing men who are at the club, who are just, I don't know, there's this new criticism of men who are like occupying the bar space, or men who are occupying, they're like, I don't know, the men are up on some platform or something, and just by virtue of men existing, women will say, wow, men used to go to war and now, so in essence saying men are only useful.
There's bad men and there's bad women.
Men are only useful if they're cannon.
Those are also like so comedic, like when women take
it's only comedic
when they take videos of like a church and they go, men used to build this, now they just cheat on you and lie. Well, like again, that's like so much more benign and playful than just commenting.
No, Farha, I want to ask, because she brought up something.
Going roasty, ran through.
No, hold on. You brought up something though that I think it can be like misogynistic or mean-spirited towards women, but also women might take it the wrong way and it's not meant to be. And that's when men bring up the issue of biological clock hitting the wall. So I agree with you, and I actually covered this in an episode, that like when people do when people show pictures of Pamela Anderson or Kirsten Dunst. Okay, so I don't know if you ever, Pamela Anderson was like Baywatch back in the 90s, Kirsten Dunst, Bring It On, highly underrated classic. One the wife enjoys a lot. Fun movie. And of course, Kirsten Dunst now in 2026 does not look like Kirsten Dunst in a cheerleader movie in 2001. She hasn't gotten plastic surgery, and and then people show pictures of her and they're like, hit the wall. Oh, and I'm like, she got old. Mm-hmm. That happens to people. That's not a big deal. I agree with you that is mean-spirited and misogynistic. On the other hand, though, I genuinely do worry about women who are told through feminism, you can have it all. You can have a career, you can be successful. And look, here's this celebrity that had kids when they were 43, and you can do that too. To me, I would say that is like telling someone, oh, you can drop out of high school and make the NFL draft. This guy did it. You can drop out of high school and drop out of college and start Facebook, this company. This person did it. Yeah, but it's a long shot. And if you're betting on frozen eggs and frozen embryos and fertility in your late 30s or 40s, there are a lot of women who realize I made a horrible bet And now it's a permanent cost. They'll never have kids. And to just merely say, hey, do you recognize this hazard in front of you? I would say that is not misogynistic, just to point that out.
I would agree. I would say 99.99% of the time people use the phrase, be wary of the clock or hitting the wall. It's being used in a misogynistic way.
Well, if it's used on the internet, people on the internet are jerks.
We're also,
sure.
by the way, they're always talking about looks. They're not really talking about fertility. They're saying the wall always happens. They're trying to say it's this revenge fantasy where it says, by the way, your sexual and romantic options are going to dry up, and we're waiting to rue the day. It has nothing to do with their fertility. When people say that, hitting the wall in itself is such a vile statement.
It is, but it's
I'm saying that's always how these people use it.
And I think
women should know, for instance, the risks of, saying they're going to freeze their eggs and all these things, for sure.
But not even that, just finding a romantic partner. And would you agree, though, that somebody who delays choosing marriage, for example, to their mid-30s or late 30s, that the romantic options for them are going to be a lot more limited? Because the men their age might prefer to date someone younger, or the men that they would have dated. I don't know. Is your fiance around your age?
He's 7 years older.
Okay, but he's still around. Oh, well, there you go. That kind of makes my point a little bit. That the men might either, if they're say the woman's in her late 30s, the guy might want to date someone in late 20s. And so, they're now the women are competing with a lot younger cohorts. And the other problem is the pool of guys who are good that they would want to marry, a girl might have picked them up when I got married when I was 28. I know a lot of other guys got married in their 20s. Mm-hmm. It's the good guys get picked up, and suddenly the guy who's left in his late 30s, his 40s, people often, rag on women the reason you're not married in your 40s because you're a psycho who's got all these problems. But for a lot of guys who putter around, well, they have failure to launch. They probably got their own issues too. And so it's I worry. And then so for her, it's she's late 30s. It's either the good guys are taken, or the guys that are left with are of varying quality or are aiming for younger girls. And women need to know about that.
I don't subscribe to that. I feel it comes off stupid if I'm he doesn't like me because I'm younger. But genuinely, I met him through work. I met him because we were both of a high enough caliber that we met an event we were
not
both
because you're
at.
younger.
So I don't think women. So I think women, it's fine to wait until they're in their mid to late 30s. Because for instance, doctors marry other doctors, lawyers marry other lawyers. They're not marrying some 21-year-old, right? So I think women should build themselves up first, and then they should cash out from there. So if they've reached the peak of their career, mid 20s or early 30s or late 30s, I think that's when they should aim to get married, because that's when they can meet the most high caliber guy. I think.
Why?
Rather than just being.
Why do you need a career to meet a high caliber guy? I mean, your guy seems high caliber. You don't have is he marrying you for your career because he likes you?
I'm saying I met him through my career,
But there's lots of ways.
OnlyFans?
No, not through OnlyFans. We met at a philosophy event.
Okay, but person doesn't have to become you're not a PhD philosopher. You're able to go and you're not a philosopher. You went to an event at a college, probably a university sponsored event. That's a great place to meet dudes. So it's you don't have to.
I met him at an event where we were both speakers at. Likewise, a male doctor is more likely to marry and date a female doctor than just some female patient that comes in, right?
That would be unethical.
They marry typically people of the same caliber of success, I'm saying.
Well, not necessarily. It doesn't have to be the same occupation. And I think for many people, and what I would be worried about is saying you got to build up your career and do all this first.
And you don't have to. Sorry, you were saying, aren't they drawing up their options? Shouldn't they try to cash out the guy while they're younger? And I'm no, if we're talking about what's most optimal for cashing out, I would say career over age.
No, because it's hard
both,
for your fiance. I'm sure there's other ladies his age or a little older who like him, but the pool then of girls he would like, it gets wider as the guy gets older. So for each woman as they get older, there's just more women that they have to compete against, and there's just a smaller pool of guys. If you wait, in your 30s to marry a guy who's of similar age, there's going to be less guys because some of them already got married off, right?
I don't know what the average age of marriage is, but
I think it's about 28
I think
or 30.
women should, regardless, even if it does start to minimize, I would prescribe that women don't just think let me take advantage of my youth by marrying someone young. I would think if that's the goal, it's getting the best quality guy you can. I would say maximizing your career. You're more likely to meet my brother who's a lawyer is way more likely to marry a lawyer who's his closer in age than just a 23-year-old.
But I don't think most people. I'd love to do a poll on this. I don't think most people, their spouse has their same job. Most people, it's a doctor and a teacher, or a doctor and secretary or invoice person or, different.
Is that true?
Or a kindergarten
I don't know
teacher.
if that's true.
Well, it would, given that there's so many jobs and
It's
professions
usually
out there.
pretty close.
No, similar status.
Usually guys
maybe.
make a little bit more, but also even like a female doctor and male doctor, he tends to make a bit more. So they could still be the same job and he still out earns a little bit more.
Right. No, what I'm saying though is that when you go and meet people, there's going to be all different kinds of things that draw you to them. They might have similar statuses, lower class, middle class, upper class, but different things you do are different circles that you run with. But I don't think, what I would worry about in this scenario is if somebody, what is the thing you value most? Do you want to have a certain career or do you want to have a certain guy and a certain like husband? And I would say, well, ideally the husband's going to be with you your whole life. Your career, not necessarily your whole life, especially what I went through recently with my wife. Like she had a brain tumor removed. And I think, she had it removed and we had the kids at the grandparents. And I spent like 2 weeks, just trying to help her learn how to talk again. And she was just like, I remember when she was, because she only had like 50 words because the tumor was in her speech center. So they had to take it out and and she's speaking a lot better now, but it's still a long road. And she just like looks at me. And so she only had like 50 words to use. She couldn't say this is a phone. She couldn't say my name. And she's like, you love me? Like she has to like pantomime. Mm-hmm. And I told her, I'm like, look, I'm not gonna baby talk you because I know you're all in there. I know you're all in there. And I'm gonna get you out of there. I'm gonna get you out of there and you're gonna be fine again. But I'm not going anywhere. I think it's way more valuable for a woman to find a guy who will have that attitude with them than to find a career. That you can get the guy and you can still do the career. And the other thing I worry about is that if you both are working, you get what's called the 2-income trap. And that can be super stressful in marriages. I don't know if you ever heard about this. The 2-income trap, coined by Elizabeth Warren before she was a senator, wrote a book about this, I think while she was at Harvard. And she said a lot of people have financial difficulty. A lot of times it's way easier to live as a family with one provider rather than two. You might think, oh no, like she's totally dependent on this guy and it's super precarious. But when the man and the woman both work, then you end up usually you need all of that income for your lifestyle. So if you only have one person working, if that person gets sick or they get like disabled, the other person can pick up the slack. But if both have to work to meet your lifestyle, then you're way more likely to run into financial stress. And because we've had a society where two people work, it inflates the money supply and it drives up housing, it drives up costs, and then it makes things actually more unaffordable for people. Mm-hmm. So not to get into a whole women working thing, but we'll probably get into that.
Yeah. Just to be clear, I wasn't saying choose career over a guy necessarily. You were saying that like the best way to like catch a good guy is to take advantage of your youth. And I was saying if the strategy is how to get the best high quality guy, it'd probably be to maximize your career, right? Like
I don't think
usually
so.
when you think about successful people, they're marrying people and dating people who went to the same, like if you talk about top tier people, it's people who also went to an Ivy League college. It's, you know what I mean? Like when you think of the royal family, like they met people
when I say a successful person, I don't mean necessarily someone who has an Ivy League or a high 6-figure salary. I mean someone who is morally successful. They can provide for a family, even if it's modest. They're virtuous. They're not going to cheat. They're not going to lie. They're not going to do drugs. And they're faithful. They're not going to beat you when they're in a bad mood or something.
I wouldn't say that person is a worse person than someone who's more career oriented. Mm-hmm. Same way I wouldn't say a young person is a better person than an older person, but you were still saying youth is better for catching a high quality guy, and I'm saying I think career is if that's the goal. Neither like infers that one's like morally better.
I don't know. I would say I know people who have tried to get married at 23, 33, and 43. And
if the only thing they have to offer primarily, other than those things you,
I know people with amazing careers.
Yeah,
but
I'm saying if the main thing they have as a woman is just like their looks, I agree. Then like getting married younger, they're gonna get a high quality guy if that's like their main thing they have to offer.
Well, it doesn't. I don't think people should marry for those superficial reasons because the looks are going to fade. They are just going to fade, and you have to be okay with that. You have to love the person who they are. Like I knew that I needed to marry Laura because I was driving with her, and she hilariously recounted a story. She was volunteering at a nursing home, and she was telling about this lady who misheard like how she was getting picked up. And they're like, we called your nephew. He didn't pick up. He's coming in a white pickup. And she just like did the voice perfectly. She's a super animated, bubbly lady. Her channel is Too Far with Laura Horn. She's like one of the few women who's ever made me just like belly laugh. And like, I know the stigma of like women aren't funny. I'm like, well, you know, they're guys who have a poor sense of humor. But it's like, and she's also a beautiful lady. But it's like, I'm going to love her no matter, you know, if they had to like shave her whole head from the cancer, I'm not going to care.
Yeah.
But so, I mean, I think if you're just relying on looks for a woman, you're in a bad spot. What you should be, men and women, it's like you should be attractive inside and out. And although what's nice is, I mean, here's one thing that I'll agree with you, it kind of sucks. Women get judged more on looks than men. Men can get by and actually date very attractive people without being that attractive. We call that the Pete Davidson effect. Like, there's other ways men can compensate, and it sucks for women. It's a lot harder. But, I mean, I didn't make the rules. I just try to figure out how to help people self-actualize to win the game, I guess.
I would like to ask Farha if, you know, there's any further disagreement that you have with Trent that you want to dive into, or...
Yeah, I have a lot. Can I go back to the other thing?
Sure.
Okay. So before I went to the bathroom, you were saying that, for instance, the fact that it's reasonable and not seen as deranged or disordered to ask your partner to not sleep with other people, like that's a typical expectation, but it is seen as disordered and unhealthy, for instance, to ask your friend to not hang out with other people, right? Points to the fact that sex perhaps is designed or should be reserved for like marriage and relationships and stuff.
Yeah.
I would just say, one, I don't think people's intuitions of what constitutes as controlling are particularly compelling. For instance, many guys would say that a girl who tells them to stop watching porn is controlling and unreasonable. I've seen this all over like forums and stuff. So I was saying,
and they're porn brained and they're wrong.
Yeah. So my point is, basing it off the person's intuitions isn't particularly convincing. Wait, sorry.
Sure.
And then I have a few other examples.
Can you try to keep it to 3 and then I'll respond?
Okay, that was the first.
Okay.
And then the second one would be a great example of this, for instance, is that like a lot of guys are willing to share their wives, for instance, with other women, something that you would think it's wrong, like having threesomes, and that doesn't trigger their jealousy, so they'd be okay with it. They wouldn't necessarily be okay with her having sex with another guy. So again, that sense of like sexual exclusivity cashes out in jealousy, not believing that sex ought to be sacred between them, because it's all about just mitigating the jealousy. And then a third example, I think, would be like emotional intimacy. So for instance, if I were to say to my fiance, hey, I'm not comfortable with you spending like one-on-one time with someone of the opposite sex who's single if I'm not there, right? And he agrees, and we make that rule for each other. That doesn't then, and I don't think you would think that's unreasonable to request. In fact, like Matt Walsh, a lot of like tradcons say you shouldn't have friends of the opposite sex, whatever. Regardless, the point is it wouldn't be seen as unreasonable to request that. That doesn't then mean like one-on-one time with someone of the opposite sex should be reserved to marriage. Like you wouldn't think it's wrong then for like unmarried or single people to be friends. You wouldn't think it's wrong for like a brother and sister to hang out, or like a college girl and a college boy to like go out for lunch and stuff, right? So I would want you to like break the mirror for me for why when it comes to that one-on-one time with another person, which is reasonable for me to forbid, it then doesn't mean it's wrong for unmarried people to do it.
Trent, really quick before you respond, really quick. You had said that husbands or boyfriends would be okay sharing their girlfriend or wife.
I said they could be.
You said a lot. So could you...
You use the phrase a lot. No way.
Could you just...
No way.
I was saying that it's
really
more...
quick,
sorry.
Wait, hold on really quick. Just for clarity, when you say a lot, could you attribute an approximation, like a percentage of the amount of boyfriends or husbands who would be okay having their girlfriend or wife sleep with other men, whether in their presence or not?
Wait, that's not what I said.
You were...
I said women.
A threesome, their wife is with another woman.
Yeah,
is that what you're
a lot
saying?
of men are okay with having their wife and another woman, like a threesome, like two girls and them.
Oh, I thought you meant like...
So you're kind of proving my point that you see that one as less like...
I don't think I'm proving any point.
Because that doesn't have to deal with fidelity
what I
as
said
much.
was a lot of guys would be more okay, and they are okay, for instance, with having a threesome with their wife and another girl, but as opposed to perhaps a threesome with their wife and another man. So
Why do you think that
just
is?
because I think that's because it doesn't make him as jealous. So I was saying that like people's intuitions about it and what they like forbid in their relationship doesn't point to sex being sacred, because you think lesbianism is wrong, right? You would think threesomes are wrong, so we shouldn't just go based off what's reasonable to forbid.
Well,
and
he's not
forbid.
jealous because in that scenario, basically his wife isn't attracted to women. Maybe she is, I don't know, but he doesn't see. It's not really her that's cheating. It's a roundabout way for him to cheat.
Yeah,
but really quick.
My point was,
but with another dude there, it's not.
Just quick point of clarification, then I'll have Trent respond. Perhaps I had made a slight misunderstanding there. But my central thing was when you say a lot. That was my central thing. Could you attribute a percentage when you say a lot? What percentage of men
engage in like threesomes with their
yeah,
girlfriend?
and for clarity, again, I misunderstood. So you were saying that men had a greater proclivity to having a
I would have
threesome
to-
with a woman as opposed to a man. That was my mistake. But again, when you say a lot of men, could you attribute a percentage?
I would have to look it up, but I know for a fact that like men are more okay with having a threesome with their wife and another woman than another
But when
man.
you say a
So it's
lot-
not just that men think intuitively sex should be reserved for man and woman, like he would say the intuition about forbidding
I wouldn't
external
even-
sexual
sure,
partners
I don't
would.
think we're disputing the fact that yes, men would be more open to a
Yeah.
threesome with another woman versus
But it doesn't
with
make
another
it
man.
doesn't make
But I'm
threesomes with women
asking
okay
of-
by your view.
Well,
Nope.
of the men that you say are inclined to have threesomes, when you say a lot of men, what are we talking here?
I don't know, but I mean, I feel like you could just ask men, and I think I think you'd find like
But is
not
it
a lot of them
okay,
would be
how about-
opposed
is it a
to
majority?
having a threesome.
But is it a majority?
I think all she's saying is men are more likely to want at a threesome another lady than another dude, and that's correct.
Even
sure.
if the woman's attracted to the other woman,
not the
even
number
if
of
she
people
isn't.
that do threesomes, but of the ones who would want threesomes, the guys, they would prefer it to be another lady
Yes.
than another guy.
So you were saying because
Yes, I
a
understand
couple
that.
forbids having sex with their people, and that's seen as reasonable, just because a husband might think, I'm okay with us having threesomes with women, but not men, that doesn't make threesomes with women more natural by your view, or more like, like morally sanctioned.
No, but it would just make it's understandable why a man would want that, because he has, in theology we call this concupiscence. We have a tendency towards that which is evil, that which gratifies our own desires at the expense of other people.
Sure.
And that's what motivates men to do stupid things. And also a lot of men, they're handicapped by evolution. I mean, I'm not a big evolutionary psychologist, but I think it does explain a lot of women's sexual evils and men's sexual evils. And so for men's sexual evils, it's like, oh, evolutionarily, if he has sex with a lot of women, his genes will get out there. I think like 1 out of every 13 people is related to Genghis Khan or something. Like, I don't know, or that's a stat people can look up because, he had so many wives and relations with people and things like that. So a guy is going to want to try to justify as many of those interactions as he
Okay.
can.
And
But going back, so you gave the 3 here. I'll go through some of them here. I still think that under your view, if sex doesn't have intrinsic sacredness, or it's not intrinsically for the monogamous marital union, and it's just based on it's just based on keeping promises, it cannot explain the deep-seated opposition we have to infidelity, just the absolute deep-seatedness to it. I'll address your 3 points, but I'll add a few things onto that. So, for example, it doesn't explain how we break lots of promises and it's not that big a deal, or we're like, help me move. Oh, okay, yeah, sure, and I forget. But breaking this promise, like it destroys relationships. Like if you think, what is the number one thing that will destroy a romantic relationship? It's infidelity. That's the number one thing that destroys, rather than, aside from incompatible, to say that it was going well and then the next day it's over. To destroy it, it would be infidelity. So it can't just be, because you broke a promise.
Well,
It's
also that applies to emotional fidelity, which women also sometimes
Yes.
tend to be more affected by. So that also relates to where I asked you to break the mirror. No sex with others. It's reasonable to request your partner not have sex with others.
Yes.
Therefore, that implies sex is either sacred for marriage, designed for marriage, reserved for marriage, and therefore it's wrong to have sex outside of marriage.
Yeah, right.
On the other side, it's reasonable for me to expect my fiance not to have one-on-one time with a member of the opposite
course.
sex. But you would think it's a leap to then go, therefore it's wrong for opposite sex platonic hangouts outside of marriage, or opposite sex time
No.
one-on-one is reserved for marriage. So what's the difference?
The difference is that when a married person is alone with a person of the opposite sex, it's what we call an occasion of sin. It's what it sets the scenario for adultery to happen. So just as we should not do evil, we should not put ourselves in positions where evil is likely to happen. Lead us not into temptation.
But it's
if you
okay
will.
for them to do it if they're single and unmarried. But by your view, it's not okay
to hang out.
Yeah.
Yes, it is okay if, now there could be cases where if you're in a romantic relationship and you want to save sex or marriage because you believe it's sacred, you might say, hey, we're really tempted and we might end up having sex if we're hanging out alone. So maybe we should hang out on the porch. Maybe we should hang out in the backyard. Maybe we should hang out, more of a group setting with people and not put or if we're alone together in, the dorm, the common area of the dorm room instead of the dorm bedroom. And there it's creating a situation where you're not engaging in the evil of adultery or fornication. But then there's other cases where opposite sex, friendships, things like that. Yeah, they're totally fine. Everybody has to decide, when am I placing myself in a position to do evil and when am I not?
It's not about the evil. It's about mitigating your wife's jealousy towards that thing. Even if the husband was super self-disciplined and was like, I'm never going to cheat, it's still not unreasonable for the wife or husband to say, I'm not comfortable with you going over to your male best friend's house and watching a movie on the couch, even if I trust you won't cheat, because it spikes my jealousy.
No, it's not just her jealousy, because it's an objectively bad situation to put oneself in. Even if it's like if you said, hey, it's okay for me to drink and drive because I'm super good at it and I put the window down and I have the radio up and things like that, you have still objectively put yourself in a bad situation, and as a married man, in a scandalous situation. We should also not even give the appearance of evil, that someone sees you, a married dude, at some lady's apartment. It's like they could naturally infer you're committing adultery. That's scandal, and one should not do that either.
Okay, but you still haven't answered why the no sex with others as a reasonable request therefore signals that sex clearly has some reservations or designed for marriage, but the reasonable rule, no opposite sex one-on-one time, therefore implies one-on-one time ought to be reserved for marriage. You wouldn't have a problem, for instance, with some college friends going out for lunch, like a girl and boy, like hanging out after school and watching a movie.
Right.
So long as they don't fornicate, that's fine. So
because the hanging out one-on-one is just in that scenario between a man and a woman, it is a prelude to sexual activity. It's
always
still,
with male and female friends. Do you think it's okay? Do you think it's possible for unmarried for a boy and girl to genuinely be friends if they're both straight?
The age-old question. I think so, but here's the thing. There's going to be, if two unmarried people spend one-on-one time together, if they ended up engaging in fornication, like, yes, that is bad. Like I said, I didn't want to necessarily weigh evils here, but
remove fornication. I'm not asking about fornication.
Well, you know what I mean. But for me, like I'm saying, like
when I ask, can they be friends? Obviously, it implies they're not hooking up. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes, of course, men and women can be friends, but it's also possible if a man and a woman become friends and then they say, hey, I actually like you and I like you too. That's great. The problem is if a married man is friends with a woman and then they say, hey, I like you and I like you. That's bad, because that can never be actualized.
Yes.
That's the problem.
But you don't think it's wrong for a single man and a single woman to be platonic friends. They're not fornicating. They don't have feelings for each other. Yeah. It's not wrong, but it's also not unreasonable for me to request my fiance not have a hangout one-on-one with a platonic straight female friend.
Right. Because it's just
so clearly then opposite sex one-on-one time is not reserved for marriage, and therefore that doesn't, just because it's reasonable for me to expect my fiance not to fuck others doesn't then mean that fucking is reserved for marriage.
You should have put on that sailor hat earlier. You got your sailor outfit on. Don't now you're that's the captain's habit. You're talking like a sailor right now. No,
you should take your glasses off though, if there's anything.
Yeah. No, this is jumping over everything that I've said, and I feel like it still hasn't explained to what I'm saying here. Would you agree that it is not possessive and weird for a husband to say to his wife, yeah, don't screw other guys?
Yeah, it's not possessive and weird.
Okay. Or how about this?
But it doesn't point to sex being reserved or designed for marriage.
Let me try something else. Is it wrong for him to say, don't screw other ladies? Don't even have sex with other ladies. Is it normal for him to say, if you meet a beautiful woman, don't sleep with her either?
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Okay. But it wouldn't be reasonable for him to say, I don't want you to have any other friends at all. That would be possessive. So what is your standard for determining if a rule about relationships with your spouse and other people is possessive or justified. But it seems to me the only rule that makes sense out of all of this is, oh, well, it's justified if the situation leads to is adultery or leads to adultery. And if it has a really very, very, very low odds of leading to that, then it would be weird and possessive. Like saying, I don't want you working at a company where men work. Like, is there possibility of adultery there? Yeah, possibly, but it's a very, very low possibility, and so it's possessive and not trusting and getting very paranoid in that respect. But there's going to be cases where we're like, oh, okay, there's a low possibility, so you got to be trusting here. But then as the circumstances change, you're like, the possibility gets much more proximate, and so it makes sense now. It's not possessive; it's prudent.
Do you think if the wife could know if the possibility of him my fiance, for instance, like having sex with another woman was zero, like cheating on me was zero, would it then be unreasonable for me to ask him not to still spend one-on-one time with someone of the opposite sex? Or is it still reasonable, even if the chances of adultery are zero, just to mitigate my jealousy? Like, is my jealousy enough to make that request reasonable? Because if so, then it has nothing to do with the prospect of adultery. And it is about jealousy being the reason that we say, don't fuck other people, don't spend one-on-one time. Not that those things being reserved or designed for marriage.
If it's a 0% chance because, he's visiting his step-grandmother, so yeah, she's not related to him, but she's 85 years old, and he likes to hang out with her. Pretty sure there's a 0% chance he's gonna have
there's
sex
also
with his
0% chance that would rile my jealousy, so that's not related to what I asked you, which is that even if I could know first, even if there was a 0% chance that he is going to cheat on me with this young attractive woman, even if it was for certain, is it unreasonable for me to ask him not to go watch a movie at her house, even though nothing will happen, they're not going to like each other? I think it's still reasonable, and you would agree, because we based boundaries primarily in jealousy, not on this idea of one-on-one time being sacred or sex being sacred. It cashes out in the jealousy and mitigating each other's jealousy.
When does jealousy become unreasonable?
I think jealousy could become atypical if it's not something perhaps common.
Well, I didn't ask
so
atypical.
For instance,
I said where you're wrong and you need to stop, unreasonable, to say, hey, your jealousy, you got to go to therapy or something. You're out of bounds. I'm saying when it becomes unreasonable. It would be unreasonable, for example, to tell your husband, you need to quit this company because there's a woman who works there. Just a woman happens to work there. Or a man who says, hey, a man works at your company. I don't want you working there. Mm-hmm. That would be unreasonable to me. But there's clearly going to be cases where it does become reasonable. But to me, the reasonableness and unreasonableness of jealousy, it does tack onto the intrinsic purposes of sex for marital bonding.
But can you answer for me whether it'd be reasonable for me to still say, don't go watch a movie with this young, attractive woman, even though I know it's 0% chance you're going to lust for her, etc.?
How can you know
it's
that?
It's a hypothetical.
How could you know that?
It's a hypothetical.
Well, I don't have to entertain impossible hypotheticals. Let me ask you this. Is it wrong for a husband to ask his wife, because it's hey, adultery is wrong because you break a promise. Is it wrong for the husband to say, hey, I've been really good. I earned a lot of money this year. Can I have a hall pass this week? I'm not going to cheat, obviously. I'm not going to go behind your back, but could I have just a freebie this week? So here, he's not being deceptive. He's not breaking a promise. Mm-hmm. He's wanting to alter the terms of the deal, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, in my perspective, that's a piggish thing to do, and it's wrong for him to do that.
Yeah, I think.
But what would you say?
I think the altering makes it wrong, and that's not inconsistent, because I said earlier, well, I don't have a problem with polyamory and people entering polyamory when that's the initial contract. I had a problem, for instance, with my friend and her boyfriend who initially were monogamous, and then him later saying, either I'm dumping you or you have to let me fuck other women in nicer terms. I think that's fucked because I think that's messed up because it's more likely that she's doing that out of desperation and not because she actually wants to, but because she's now so emotionally attached that she doesn't want to let it go. But that's, again, it's not inconsistent because I'm fine if they got into that arrangement initially and genuinely out of their own desire.
But what if we reversed it and they could change their minds? Let's say they began as a polyamorous relationship. It's two guys and a girl. That's a show, I think, right? So it's two guys and a girl, and they started as a polyamorous relationship. And one of the guys says to the girl, I actually really love you. Could it just be us? And she says, yeah, I think it could. Would that be wrong?
Wait, sorry, two guys
and a girl.
Two guys and a girl, and the guy says to the girl, could it just be the two of us? Uh-huh. Would that be wrong to ask for that? I guess like when I think how the three of them came together, I guess I usually assume like first it's a couple and then they add someone on. So for instance, if it was like a wife and a husband, they met someone off Bumble to like as their unicorn to hook up with, and then the unicorn says to like the husband, like, can it be the two of us? I guess you could argue like it's wrong because the initial agreement was that like this is the
what
formation.
if where there's roommates, two guys and a girl, they share like a 3-bedroom house, you know, and then all of a sudden just naturally arose that way between the three of them.
I think if their understanding getting into it was like we're gonna all stay together, like I guess it'd be disrespectful. I guess I don't know enough about the psychology of
well, I guess
polyamory.
that's so interesting though.
But the reason, sorry, to be clear, the reason that I still think it's different to perhaps pivot from polyamory to monogamy versus monogamy to polyamory is because I think we should be more critical and scrutinizing of situations where women are likely to succumb to an arrangement due to coercion. And when you look at polyamory, because a lot of the times it's the man proposing it onto the woman and then her maybe going along with it because she doesn't want to lose him. That's why I offer more like suspicion of it versus the one where it goes polyamory to monogamy because it doesn't necessarily have that same like coercive like social pressure to it. That's why I'm less likely to scrutinize it.
I think it depends. I think the red pillars who do that that do that one-way monogamy stuff, maybe. But a lot of people who say they're polyamorous or thruples, I think it tends to be more like people on the far left where it's like the woman likes other women and is like doing this kind of stuff. So I think it depends.
I've just seen the statistic that say usually it's the man proposes that they be polyamorous. And like I'm saying, like, that's why I'm more skeptical of it, of thinking like, does the woman actually want to be doing this or is it coercion? So that's why I don't think it's inconsistent to be more skeptical of monogamy to polyamory rather than the reverse.
Here's the problem I have.
Because the reverse, poly to mono, isn't typically like laden with like that coercive or pressure element of the guy proposing it and the girl succumbing because she's already so emotionally invested and she's scared to lose him. So that's where the inconsistency
But here's
comes.
where I think it's going to collapse. You're saying like, well, I don't like if it's a man and a woman and he wants to alter the deal and bring in another woman and be like, hey, can we do this? And she's like, that's not what I signed up for. And you seem to be saying, yeah, that's abusive or that's exploitative or
coercive.
It's coercive. Yeah. I didn't sign up for that.
Sorry, it doesn't always have to be coercive. I said statistically, I would say because it's usually something the man wants and the woman is already emotionally invested, it's one thing if he proposed it at the onset of the relationship, but I think waiting until this woman's in love with you and then proposing something which she otherwise would not have agreed to, whether it be polyamory, threesomes, anal, like anything which the man statistically tends to propose onto the woman and she goes along with to satisfy him, I think tends to be a bit more morally compromised.
So you're against anal in marriage?
I'm against anal if the woman is doing it out of coercion, which tends to be more likely the case in relationships than casual, by the way.
And that's why I feel like I see the biological design right there that exits aren't entrances, and a woman would be rightful to say, you shouldn't ask me to do that. But when it comes to altering,
I also think she'd be rightful to ask, not because of that, but because there is such a culture of pressure around anal. I think in order to stave off pressure, you want to remove like someone else recommending it, and if she desires it completely out of her own volition, free from pressure, I think it's fine. But I think if he asks her, I think it's typically wrong because it's usually like embroiled in a culture of like sexual pressure.
But when I said about altering the deal, it's like, do you think though the man should be free? You don't like the man. Okay, I think I see what you're saying here. You don't like, she will feel coerced in having to include a woman she rather would not because she wants to keep the relationship going.
Not necessarily. I said like I would be more
skeptical.
I would want to know if that's the case, and statistically I would say it probably tends to be the case. If it wasn't the case, genuinely I wouldn't oppose it. My concerns purely come from like the coercive fears.
Coercive fears, okay.
Her doing it to satiate him because she can't bear to lose him. Like that's where my fear comes in, not just the idea of like, well, that's unfair because sex is supposed to be between you two.
Well, it's because he shouldn't do something that puts her in a position where she doesn't feel trusted and respected and cherished and loved. He should not put her in a position where she feels unloved. But then by that same logic, I would say, let's say he likes this other lady and he doesn't want to bring her into polygamy. He just wants to get a divorce. Like, shouldn't he not do that either because it's unloving to his wife?
I think the reason I'd be against that is I think like if you're getting married, the contract is like you're staying with each other even if the feeling ebbs and flows, unless one of you commits like abuse or infidelity. So I would say like the point of getting married is that contract of like, I might fall in and out of love with you, but I'm going to stay. So I would say that's wrong because you're breaking that contract you made.
So would you be against no-fault divorce then?
I would need to know like what conditions specifically.
Well, of just someone saying, well, divorce is just for irreconcilable differences. We just don't get along anymore. And I'll even leave away the legal aspect. Could we at least say we should stigmatize no-fault divorce? It's bad for society. It's bad for marriages. It hurts women. It hurts children. Marriage, if we want to treat marriage seriously, it's supposed to be till death do us part.
Well, two different, like, my reason for wanting to stigmatize it wouldn't be because I think like that's the building block or what's best for the children, all these things. I'm saying it could be stigmatized because the idea is you're making a promise to a person saying like, even if I fall out of love with you, I will stay with you because like that's what we're signing up for. So I would think it could be stigmatized because like you ended up acting on an emotional whim which transgressed like the contract you entered, not because you're like hurting the family or it's bad for society or whatever. Well, that's separate, I guess, is
that's
my point.
So that's so interesting. Like what's motivating you here, because also what's motivating us about like what's right or wrong. Because I also believe that there's like universal objective moral facts written into the universe of things you ought to do, things you ought not to do. But when you talk about what does right and wrong mean to you? What makes something right? What makes something wrong? What do you believe there's objective morality, or we just make rules for things to work okay?
I think all my arguments right now are based off like agreements and contracts. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to like sex work and like marriage and stuff. I'm talking about like you enter a contract with someone, like you're making a sort of deal of like, I will stay with you even if I fall in and out of love. You know what I mean?
Is there a moral duty to
fulfill your contract?
To fulfill a contract, an objective moral duty?
Like found in the universe, like independent of us witnessing it. Like, I don't know.
Because otherwise you're just proposing like, it's kind of like when people try to get me to play Settlers of Catan. And like, here's all the rules of the game, and here's how it all works. And I'm like, wood for sheep. I don't know what's going on here. Or I'll try to play, and I'm like, this game, I don't get it. I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. I feel like if you just say, well, morality is just social contract theory. Like it's just, morality is just about, it's just it's a descriptive way of describing how we interact with one another based
I definitely
on
don't think
contracts and
that,
punishments.
because for instance, like I'm vegan. I think people should go vegan, even though animals can't enter
we don't have contracts
a
with
social
them.
contract with animals. So I wouldn't say that. I was saying particularly when I'm talking about why I think no fault divorce is wrong
I want to ask,
is because you're breaking the contract. I wasn't saying all things only being wrong is just because it breaks a contract. I was just saying for that particular instance, I'd be pro stigmatizing it.
Do you think there's a moral duty to be a vegan?
I would say it's like the morally right thing to do.
What does that mean?
I would say like ethically it bottoms out, and again, like what's best for rational agents. And I don't think you think animals are rational agents and stuff.
Not rational like we are, but they're capable of having varying levels of consciousness.
I mean, all this is like a pivot from the sex stuff. Like you haven't broken the mirror for me about sex with others.
I do think it's fair though to answer his question, is it a moral duty?
Yeah, because what I'm talking about is the duties we have to like not commit adultery, to not engage in fornication, to not have sex with trees or animals or dead animals or things like that. I think those rules make sense because there are these overarching moral facts about the universe we can find with our rational minds, along with rules like do good and avoid evil. Mm-hmm. But if you're saying you need to do this, you need to do that, I can always have the schoolboys retort, who says? And if it's like, well, the contract says, then it's like, to quote Darth Vader in Empire Strikes Back, Lando says to him, I thought we had a deal. And he said, I have altered the terms of our deal. Pray I don't alter them any further. Mm-hmm. We could just change. There's no governing moral norm to change the contract to just fit the people who are in power or the people who have other interests involved. If it's just related to like contracts and stuff, we need an overarching moral fact to say.
I didn't say it was just related to contract. You were saying, why am I against, or why do I think we should perhaps stigmatize someone for ending a marriage purely based off like falling out of love with them if they agreed to be with each other outside of it. And I was saying like the main reason there would be that like you led someone on and brought them into a contract which you broke. I wasn't saying that all moral propositions.
Part of it's also
bottom out in
you
that,
harm this
because
person.
I'd say it's wrong to, for instance, like contribute to factory farming, eat animals, not because I entered a contract with a cow. So I was just giving that for that particular instance.
That's fine. So no,
But-
I think that we've gone through a lot with that. But what I'm concerned about is, once again, if you were saying about infidelity, it's like, yeah, it's wrong to ask if a person can have a hall pass because that was never in the terms that we had at the beginning.
No. I said I'm skeptical of situations in which women might be doing something out of coercion because I was saying.
What if a woman asks for the hall pass?
I would say it's less bad to ask.
Why?
For the same reason that I think it's less bad for like a woman to ask if they do anal together than the man. It's because when the man does it, I think he's participating in this culture of sexual pressure in which like.
Can women
But it sounds like you're saying women cheating is not as bad as men cheating.
No, sorry, that's not what I'm saying is bad. I was saying in terms of what I was saying was bad about the mono to poly thing was that typically women might agree to it because of pressure. So I was saying if the yardstick I'm using is based off like staving off pressure, then a woman asking a man to do poly is less bad in that she's less likely to pressure him to do that. He's less likely to give into that sexual pressure. Like women tend to be more agreeable and stuff. So I wasn't saying it's less bad for them to then enter it. I was saying it's less coercive.
Okay.
Would you agree?
I mean, I think like we have common ground here in that you shouldn't. Infidelity is wrong. That when you break a promise, or that it's coercive because you're engaging in this, and the person might not want to go along with it, but they want to keep the relationship, so they're going to go anyways. I don't know. I feel like, but by that logic, then you could say like if a husband chooses a new job, like that could be coercive to the wife because she's only putting up with the new job because she wants to keep the husband around. But that's nowhere near as wrong as like picking up a new lady or something.
Wait, say that again.
Like picking up
a man gets a job,
he gets a new job. It's like, well, is that coercive because she may not like this change up and she's just sticking with him because she wants to keep the relationship around? Like,
well, that doesn't.
Because like, is he coercing?
But how's that parallel?
It's parallel in that he can pick up a new job, and even if she doesn't like it, it's not coercive. He isn't doing anything wrong. Like, oh, she's only staying because she wants to be with him. She's just tolerating the new job. But it is coercive if he picks up a new lady to keep in. So I think that it shows that just because he might change something they do.
The thing that makes it coercive isn't just changing a lifestyle habit, right? That's why I said it's less coercive for a woman to propose polyamory or propose anal, right? So just the proposal itself doesn't make it coercive. What makes it coercive is it's typically within a culture where the women say yes to it, not because they want to, but because they feel coerced into it and pressured into it.
Wait, really quick, some clarifications here, just so we understand, the viewers can understand. When you say coercive, can you define what that means?
Coercive is just like a stronger word for like pressuring someone into something.
It's a
kind of like
stronger
impeding. Yeah, like I think coercive is pressuring someone in a way which impedes on their ability to consent to it in like an informed way or do something that they would otherwise do of their own volition.
Would this, just another thing of clarification here, you said this would apply to like anal sex or the man asking for polyamory.
Wait, I have another one.
I think, well, here's a good example for it, right? So like, for instance, I don't think there's anything wrong with a woman, for instance, every day she wakes up, she showers, she puts on makeup before she goes downstairs, right? I think that's totally fine. But because it's a sensitive behavior and often one which women do feel pressured to, I would think it would go from morally neutral to morally bad if her husband said to her, hey, what if every morning before you come downstairs and greet me first thing, you put on a face full of makeup, right? So you took something that's morally neutral and you made it morally bad by adding in a pressure.
What's wrong with, there's nothing wrong with asking that. She could say, well, it's a lot of work.
I'm not speaking to whether the pressure is so intense that she's absolved of responsibility. I was saying you would recognize that perhaps that's a bit more morally compromised than him perhaps saying like something like, hey, like you look better in blue than purple, because the idea is makeup is something which oftentimes women do feel pressure to do. And if it's something in which there's a lot of social pressure that they're mirrored in, then someone else recommending that thing to them can make it more morally compromised.
And I would put and my framework would be much simpler, would be this: a husband should never ask for him or his wife permission to do something that's intrinsically evil. So having sex with someone you're not married to is But wearing makeup and stuff like that, it
Okay,
isn't
what about
intrinsically
this?
evil.
Imagine a wife gives birth, a week later she decides, I'm not feeling great about my body, I'm going to go to the gym, right? I think that's totally fine. What if her husband says to her 7 days after she gave birth, hey, what if you start going to the gym again? Like, you're gaining some weight. It's fine if she does it of her own volition. It's morally neutral.
Right.
If he pressures her into it, this is morally compromised because it adds this pressure.
His request isn't intrinsically evil. Asking someone to go to the gym can be justified. So not all evils...
7 days after she gave birth,
No.
is it morally wrong, or is it more morally compromised for him to ask it rather than her ask it? So my point is, it's not
can I answer
simply
that question?
he's... Yeah.
Yeah, the question is, my point was you must not do... you cannot ask permission or request someone to do evil.
To do something immoral.
And you're immoral.
Yeah.
And your request itself should not be immoral. So, for example, there are things that are intrinsically evil. Murder, essay, adultery. Those are some examples I gave, things that are intrinsically evil. There's other things that become evil based on circumstance or intent. So, for example, asking someone to go to the gym is not evil if they're morbidly obese and you're like, you need to do this or you're going to die. But it is evil when you are doing it for an irrational reason that will contribute to a negative aspect of someone's health, like that they're just recovering from childbirth or something.
Yes.
So the difference there is, I think it's clear, though, my view of adultery being intrinsically evil, it better explains why asking about that stuff is wrong versus like any of these other situations.
No, I think this explains it perfectly, which is that you said it's wrong to request something which is morally wrong, but I'm saying something could be morally neutral, wearing makeup, hitting the gym 7 days after getting birth, perhaps wearing spandex, all these things. But if there's third-party recommendation, like a husband recommending it, the request itself, because it's a sensitive behavior, which is often liable to coercion, can turn that morally neutral thing into something more morally compromised by the request without it making the actual thing requested morally wrong if she does it of her own volition,
Ryan,
whether it be polyamory, makeup, spandex, hitting the gym after giving birth.
Before I have Trent respond, I don't think I really got an answer to the question, and I think it's worth actually getting a definition of coercion. You just said it's pressure, or more pressure than pressure.
I would say it's pressuring someone to do something that they wouldn't do of their own volition. So impeding on their consent to do it.
So, okay, question. Simply by virtue of asking someone to do something, and that's the extent of it, just asking someone a question, is that coercion?
It depends on the thing asked. Like, it has to be a sensitive thing. So if I ask my wife, if a man were to ask his wife, hey, what if you wear purple instead of blue? That's not necessarily coercive. But if the thing is sensitive,
boyfriend asks girlfriend to have sex. Is that coercive?
It depends how he does it. If he asks like over and over again, but he doesn't force himself. If he asks once, I wouldn't say it's coercive. If he asks after she already says no, I would say it's coercive.
Okay.
I have a question about a coercive example then. So you're saying husband and wife, this is the fast one.
Too much Red Bull.
Husband and wife, and he wants to ask for a third lady into the arrangement. You said that could be coercive. You're skeptical. You're concerned. You're just skeptical of it.
Yeah, but if they entered it again willingly from the onset, it'd be.
But you're concerned about coercion there. Would you be concerned? He's not asking for another lady. He's asking to subscribe to you. Is that coercive?
Yes, because porn use in relationships, I think, tends to be something that women turn a blind eye to, but they don't actually want it. Like, half of women report being uncomfortable with male porn use in relationships. A third of wives consider it cheating. I think this number is lowballed because I think it's lowballed. I think more women are uncomfortable with their partners watching porn. I don't think any woman wants their partner watching porn.
And there are studies, 2014 study that was a representative study with about 20,000 couples said that exposure to pornography, it was the Dorn and Price 2014 study, saying that they were more likely to have an affair, they were less likely to report happiness in their marriage. So I'm glad. So you see.
But the paramount issue for me why I think porn use is wrong is because I think it's a form of infidelity, not that it has those negative consequences.
Well, it's a sign that you've done something wrong.
My concern isn't that it's a gateway for cheating, because I think in a way that still takes away the responsibility.
Look, it's
for the
wrong.
man
It's wrong.
for
You're
having the
cheating. You're
affairity.
cheating. It doesn't matter if you go.
One, I think it doesn't fit the definition of monogamy, which is sexual exclusivity, which
Yes.
most relationships say
Sure.
they subscribe to. So I think you're breaking the relationship. I think men who watch porn but won't let their girlfriend
But
be on
then
OnlyFans
why-
are in like one-sided open relationships.
Sure, and I'm glad you say, like,
Yeah.
I'm super stoked you agree that married men using porn,
It's
it's
cheating.
cheating.
Yeah.
But just as you would not sleep with your friend's husband, why are you doing OnlyFans knowing there's husbands checking you out? Like, come on, just quit.
For the same reason that being young, and you see women on TikTok every day, they just walk around normally and they say, I find it really depressing to see married men check me out and realize the only thing separating me from his wife is
Come
age.
on, you don't
So is being young.
you don't
So should women
see-
who are, okay, you even admitted it's easier as a younger woman to pull men. Should younger women try to hamper their beauty, since married men are more likely to lust after them than women their own age?
There is
At what
clearly-
point do you not
No,
put the
come on,
onus
this
on
is-
the person?
this is disingenuous.
No.
Come on, no.
That's actually more.
No one is
that's
buying
more,
this.
Yes, it is.
Nobody's buying this.
buying that men,
No one is
older
buying
men are more
that
likely
you're
to
saying
lust
that-
after younger women
You're
than
saying
older
there's
women.
no difference from just being attractive and walking down the street
In
and
terms
turning
of-
on your
in
webcam
terms
and
of
sticking
morally-
your fist up your ass.
in terms of
Like,
moral responsibility
not that you
for
do that.
him
I don't know what
committing-
you do, and I'm glad I don't know what you do.
In terms of moral responsibility for the man perpetrating adultery, yes, there's no difference in moral responsibility on my end. Same way, just because younger women tend to be more checked out than older women by married men doesn't mean they have a responsibility to like hide their beauty or their youth. Would you agree? Married men tend to check out younger women over
Farha,
older women.
Farha, that is like saying there is no difference between somebody keeping pain pills in their house, knowing someone might rob them and take the pills, versus someone who sells pain pills to make addicts. That's like saying there's no difference between those two things. That's the comparison between being a beautiful woman walking down the street and being you, who is an online pornographer.
The difference with that is that your idea with the pain pills is that anybody who takes it, I'm doing a wrong thing. Same way I could be pro alcohol but against drunk driving or pregnant women drinking it.
No.
That would be the analogy.
The difference
is that
is
I'm pro alcohol.
The difference
If I
is,
okay, here's a question.
if you're just a beautiful woman and a guy
if I ran a liquor store
time,
and
please.
people bought liquor from my store and then they went and like drank drive, am I doing something morally wrong by selling alcohol? Am I morally responsible for the pregnant women's friends who come in and buy a bottle of alcohol to give it to their pregnant friend?
No, because selling
Okay.
the liquor store is like being the beautiful woman walking down the street.
Why?
You are more like the bartender who serves a clearly drunk guy, and they can be held responsible because you know at least half or 90% of your clients are married. You're more like the guilty bartender who gives the guy at the bar who's clearly drunk alcohol when he knows he shouldn't. You're more like that.
Okay, I see it more as the alcohol. Like I don't know how I'm responsible for men committing adultery. Same way me being young.
Because you know they're married. You know they're married. You know 90% of them who come to you are married. And you're not even willing to tell them to go away.
Lusting is a form of adultery, and I don't think it's the young women's fault for walking around and men being like lusting after them.
Yeah, because
like why is porn the one instance? You even admitted lust is a form of adultery.
Because you are putting your naked, sexualized, pornographic self out there specifically for them to do that.
Specifically for is ridiculous.
Why do people subscribe to you?
To get off.
There
That
you go.
means it's for
There you-
married
there you
people to
go.
get off?
But you know that they're married who come to see you and do
Why
that.
do
and you
people
know
buy
that's-
alcohol from you to get drunk?
No,
therefore
no,
you're selling
people
to
can have
pregnant women.
alcohol
That's
for-
therefore you're selling to drunk drivers.
No,
What?
people can have alcohol just for a lovely,
Yes,
fun
and people
time.
could watch porn while being single. I'm not responsible for people committing adultery. I'm not responsible if I sell alcohol for pregnant women drinking or people drinking behind the wheel.
No, it's the same as if you had a liquor store.
Here,
Go
before
ahead.
let's let one chat come through. 30 seconds here, and then we have one message from Rachel.
Flavius Assasinus has
And then,
donated $200.
break. Thank you,
Trent
Flavius.
said to Tim Gordon, Catholics and Christians can take some kind of feminism that seeks out equality, and there's nothing wrong with that. This of model is type of person subverting the church.
Well, you're not even religious, right?
No.
I'm not sure what that means, and that's why we had a discussion about that many, many years ago. And I don't like the term feminism because it's a loaded term and it's associated. Why don't you? I'll ramble and you can do.
Here, one thing from Rachel Wilson. Farha, is it morally wrong for a man to have standards or expectations for his wife or girlfriend? Is it the same or different for a woman to have standards or expectations for her husband or boyfriend?
I don't think it's wrong in of itself to have standards. It would depend what it is. Like obviously if the man's saying, I expect my woman to cover from head to toe in burqa, then just because it's a standard doesn't make it justified. Like, right, it would depend on what the standard and expectation is.
Okay. Well, why don't you go use the bathroom and we can.
Well, I want to address the feminism thing that was brought up.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to the term feminism, but I think that in the past there were forms of patriarchy that were wrong or they were unjust, and it was unjust towards women for those forms of patriarchy to exist. So, for example, in the 19th century, there was a court case, Jesse Black versus North Carolina. And the question was, so Jesse and his wife got into an argument, and he grabbed her head, and he slammed her down into the wood floor, and he badly bruised her, really hurt her up pretty bad bruise. And the court said, is he guilty of assault? And the court said, as long as he doesn't leave a permanent mark, he's not guilty of assault. So it's like, and they said, we are not going to peer behind the domestic curtain. So it was legal. You could hit your wife. You could leave a bad bruise that lasted for several days, as long as you didn't leave a permanent mark, like a scar or a broken bone or something like that. And I would say that's unjust. And so changing the law so that you can't beat your wife, that's a good thing for women. You want to chalk that up to feminism, you can chalk it up to whoever you want. I don't know, whatever. Or I'll give you another example. There's a woman named, I think her name was Kathleen Parker. Her husband had her committed to an insane asylum because she disagreed with his theology. And back then, because he was a minister, and she said, well, I don't believe in this theology you're preaching at the church. So he had her locked up in an insane asylum. And back then, you had to get doctors to approve being institutionalized, but husbands could have unilateral authority to lock their wives up in an insane asylum. And so I would say society is better that husbands don't have that authority anymore. Now, do I think it's gone to the way other extreme with like craziness, like Rachel's expectations question that jogs something? Like if women do like a chore chart saying like you only get sex when you do your chores, no, that's bad. So I think a lot of things you call feminism are total crazy, but that doesn't mean in the past there weren't times when women were subject to legitimate abuse and unjust laws. And it's good we fixed those. So now I worry it's gone way far in the other direction. So that's my thoughts on that.
Okay. All right. I think honestly, Trent, I think you got to go harder on Farha, to be honest. But I don't know. I think the coercion thing is quite a peculiar thing that she's saying here, in that if men ask things of women.
Well, I don't like her saying, maybe when she comes back we can talk about this, saying like that women can ask for these things, but men can't, because I think it's equally wrong for men and women to cheat. Right. So that's where I would be concerned.
She's viewing it through this paradigm or framework or lens of feminism, whereby in society women face these unique pressures that men don't. Therefore, if a man were to ask a woman to do something, that would be a form of coercion. Whereas
when she gets back, we can ask her, because I think also that I think I'm just trying to get people to say, hey, look, marriage is a good thing. We should be monogamous, faithful.
Yeah.
And she might have a different grounding for explaining that.
Sure.
So then we have to see whose grounding makes more sense.
Trent, do you consider yourself a feminist?
I said I don't like that label.
You don't like the label feminism?
I don't. Okay. I mean, I don't know if I've ever used it in the past, but what I said earlier was like I think white people shouldn't mistreat black people.
Yeah.
I think white and black people should not mistreat each other, and they should have equal rights. But I'm not a racialist. There's no word to describe. I think white people and black people should have equal rights.
Okay.
I just think they should.
Right.
So I think men and women should have equal rights. I think that they are different, though. And so society might be ordered a little bit differently, but they should have the same basic rights, like not to get locked up in an asylum, or the right to not be...
Should women be drafted?
Should they be drafted?
In the military?
I don't know. I don't know if I believe in military draft in general, but they can be. They can be, but not necessarily in a combat role.
Okay. But
so, for example,
with drafting them for like support roles.
It depends. Like, for example, Israel has a male and female draft.
Correct. Yes.
So it's like, and everybody there has to like keep weapons on them, and they're pretty high up about that. So like they have a male female draft, and I don't know. Okay. I mean, I think that would be.
So we should draft women in the United States.
Should we? I don't think we should. I don't want to be drafting anybody based on our foreign policy. But if we did a draft, I think it'd be fine I think it's fine to make it men and women.
Okay.
But I think though, if we're going to if people are going to do things for civil service, so whether it's military or firefighting or police. I think that everyone who applies or is conscripted has to pass the same tests.
Okay.
So like if a woman wants to be a cop or a firefighter, she can't have a separate woman test. Like if she can't make the men's test, it's got to be the same test. So that's where I don't know if some feminists will say, well, women need a different standard. No, I'm sorry. I want my cop to be able to do what all the other men, or I want my firefighter to be able to pick me up and carry me out of the burning building. And if a woman can't do that, she can't be a firefighter.
Sure.
Sorry.
Couple questions, Farha. The coercion topic, I still feel like I haven't quite gotten a sufficient definition on coercion. The audience continues to ask for how you define coercion.
I would say I'm defining it in terms of pressuring someone into doing something which typically they engage with as a result of pressure and not due to their own volition. So for instance, it's not coercion, I think, to say to your wife, hey, you look better in purple than pink. So it has to be specifically with things that are sensitive, more sensitive topics.
Would it be
So things like anal sex, things which typically are liable to external pressure and which people engage in largely
I'll let Brian go
and
ahead.
routinely
Just a few
because of
questions.
external pressure.
I'll stay out. I'll let you go, and then I'll. I have a thought. Go right ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
2 or 3
have fun.
questions, and
have
I'll
at
pass it right back
Use
to
a
you.
break, anyways.
Yeah. So I'm a bit confused though. So
By the way, men and women are different. I haven't gone to the bathroom yet.
look at that, the bladder.
But you
control
did start with a lot.
You had a lot of Red
Have you
Bulls,
gone
to
through
be
a lot of your
fair.
Red Bull yet?
I've gone through 5.
She's had
Oh
a
my
lot.
goodness.
Her heart is 200 beats per minute. Okay, so simply if a man were to ask his girlfriend or wife one time to have anal sex, just once, and I think you sort of went to this, well, if it's repeated, that would be coercion.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said sex. Did you say anal sex?
Well, you brought up the topic of anal
Yeah.
sex. So if the man one time, so correct me if I'm wrong, your argument is in society, women are more pressured than men to do certain things than the reverse.
Yeah.
So if
Such
a
as
man were to
anal.
ask one time his girlfriend or wife to engage in anal sex one time, that in and of itself, my understanding is, would be coercive because the cultural and social zeitgeist puts this pressure on women.
Oh, sorry. To rephrase it better, I don't think the man should ask because it's a practice which is liable to coercion, and the fact that oftentimes when women engage in it, it's because of pressure from their partner. Not simply that asking once is pressure, but I'm saying that because it's often mirrored in coercion,
Well,
and the fact that usually it's done as a result of a man asking them over and over, saying oh, it's fine, it's no big deal, etc., and then her afterwards being experiencing physical pain, psychological distress from it, whatever. So I was saying that him asking once doesn't necessarily constitute coercion, but I'm saying with things that tend to be mirrored in coercion, I don't think you should even necessarily ask. Same way, I don't think you should even necessarily ask your wife 5 days after she gave birth to hit the gym, even if you ask once. You're not coercing her by asking her once, but because it's often mirrored in pressure, I don't think you should even ask once. I don't think you should even tell your wife, hey, how about before you come greet me every day, you put on a full face of makeup.
But even if the man asks once, your position is it's not necessarily coercion or coercive, but it could be coercive. But I mean, granting that the question is asked only once, you say the man shouldn't even ask once. The reason he shouldn't ask once is because there's a tendency for it to be coercive.
I think he shouldn't ask in order to make sure it's not done as a result of pressure. So I think if a woman cooks it up in her mind herself of I'm really craving having anal sex and it's free from external pressure, I think it's different for her to pitch and propose it onto him. I think for him to pitch and propose it, I think then it makes it a bit different because of the statistics on women reporting they felt pressure to do it.
Right. And so, anal sex might be.
And I feel the same thing with sex work. I think it's fine for women to do sex work of their own volition. I think if someone nudges them to do it, I think that's compromised, not necessarily because even just asking once or recommending it once in itself is coercion, ask once, but because it's something that typically is mirrored in coercion and pressure, you want to ensure that act is being undertaken of their own volition.
Okay. But what would you say, I guess, off of anal sex, do you think oral sex, whether it's the man giving it to the woman or the woman giving it to the man, if the man were to ask the woman for a blowjob or the woman were to ask the man for, to go down on her, do you think it is more coercive in one direction? Well, how about this?
Sorry,
Is
not
it-
more coercive.
Let me ask it like this.
Is it more liable to coercion?
Is the man asking his girlfriend for a blowjob coercive?
Sorry, I don't think the man asking once for anal is coercive.
No,
I said he shouldn't
blowjob.
do it because it's often liable to coercion.
But can a woman be coerced into oral sex?
Can she be coerced? Obviously,
there's
she
a
could be
di-
coerced into oral
there's a-
sex.
But hold on, there's a difference between like oral sex and anal sex. Like anal sex is perhaps a further physical. It's a perhaps a bigger ask of someone to participate in than just oral sex.
Well,
which
that,
can
but
be
even
more
when you look
mutual.
at statistics of women who engage in anal sex, they'll often say it was due to, like, they'll use the words like partner pressure, romantic partner usually, and then they'll say afterwards it's painful, they didn't really like it, etc.
Sure.
So it's based in the idea of like, not because I'm like, oh, it's because the anus is an exit point on entry point. It's based in the idea of like, based in the reality of what women report from feeling it. With
Sure.
oral sex, for instance, like I don't think a guy should ask like a girl to swallow. I think that's something she should just do if she wants to. I don't know if
Okay,
that's a
well,
hot take.
Okay, but hold on.
But it's not coercive for a husband to ask his wife just to have good old vaginal intercourse, right? In
no,
all,
I think to-
all
I think
other
to-
things being equal.
Like asking once. No.
When you say wait,
Yeah.
so would it be coercive for a husband to ask more than once to
For
have
a,
sex?
for a sensitive act like sex, yeah.
Well,
And
how
same
about-
with anal sex,
well,
same with oral sex, same with, yeah.
But you don't think vaginal sex is a sensitive thing? That's a normal thing to ask.
No, I think sex is still sensitive because it's often liable to coercion and pressure. You think people don't like rape, assault, and pressure women into vaginal sex all the time?
No,
Hold on,
but
rape-
I'm
rape
saying
is
I'm saying
different than the-
I'm saying in marriage though, just to like, it sounds like asking for something like oral or anal sex is more apt to be coercive, that a woman doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's unnatural. It's not what sex is for. Her butt and her mouth were not for where his semen is supposed
Okay,
to
here's
be
a great
reside.
counter. By your logic, cunnilingus, him going down her is unnatural.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say it's coercive for him to ask her, can I eat you out? And neither would you.
No, because
is it coercive because it's unnatural?
I will answer that. I don't think parts of the body are unkissable. I think there's a difference. No, you can laugh, but I don't think there is a difference between the release of the man's semen. Okay, I think there's a big difference. Even when you gave the example, because like I'm fine. I don't think most women would not consider, when you say oral sex, would not consider it coercive that she's just kissing the penis and doing the penis. I sound like that old. There was this like 80-year-old woman in the 90s, Dr. Ruth or whatever, who had sex advice. Look her up on YouTube. She's funny. Just doing that, I wouldn't say that's. I don't know if you'd say that's coercive, but you even use the example of swallowing, that the release of the semen into the mouth or in the anus. I think people have a natural repulsion to that.
Well, really
You
quick.
said it's
at
coercive.
least regular
You said-
opposite sex
Hold on.
You
attracted
said, wait,
women.
sorry, can I just say one sentence? One
but
sentence.
the oral,
One sentence.
but kissing
sentence.
different parts
You
of the body is different.
One sentence.
One moment, wait, really quick here. We have Andrew Wilson here leaving some super
what does he get
Wait,
to
hold
stop
on,
the
really
show?
quick.
Can I
Wait,
just
really
say
quick. I
one
just gotta
thing?
say something. I gotta say something, and then we can get right back into the topic. Andrew Wilson, should we let Andrew call in? Do you guys want to let Andrew Wilson call in? Do you want to let him crash the debate really quick? But
No.
Okay, well that's fine.
He
but,
says I'm winning.
Wait, hold on. I do want to point something out very quickly, and then I'll let you guys get right back to it. Farha, do you recall, this is back in 2023, you, I believe, had a one-on-one debate with Andrew Wilson.
On the show?
No, not on this show. This was like a video
Oh, I'm playing
debate.
with fire?
I don't recall, but you guys were having a debate. Andrew, was forwarding his force doctrine. Mm-hmm. Do you recall that interaction you had?
We've done forced doctrine
Now,
on this show. We did on
Andrew,
Playing
I
with
don't know
Fire.
if you're still watching. Really quick, on this, I believe that all the credit, in a sort of domino effect, cascading sort of way, to Andrew's success is because of you. Now, this is why. So the way I discovered Andrew Wilson, and this is back in mid to late 2023, was the clip of you debating Andrew Wilson.
On Playing with Fire.
I don't know what the platform was, but the way I found Andrew Wilson, and what I suppose precipitated me inviting him on the show, was seeing him debate you. So perhaps the credit from your perspective, the blame on Andrew's meteoric rise could be placed.
I got him on Joe Rogan.
Essentially, but yeah, no, I saw that clip, and that's what made me invite Andrew on the Whatever podcast, and we generated essentially 1 billion views for Andrew, and kind of were, I think the first like bigger platform to have him on, and we had him on 50, 60, 70 times. So it's
while this
all
nostalgic lane has been great,
interestingly enough, because you engaged with Andrew Wilson as a feminist, it actually, I don't know if you'd consider this platforming, it's actually, I think, the direct result for all his success in this sort of...
I'm happy for him.
Yeah. I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. I was thinking of that. So, because if it wasn't for that clip, I would have never
You would have never met him.
I would
You're
have never
welcome.
seen Andrew Wilson. So I guess I have to
You're
thank
welcome for giving you a content
Andrew
gold
Wilson,
mine.
and Andrew, I have to thank a feminist for putting Andrew Wilson on my radar, which sort of created this cascading domino effect of...
Behind
everything.
every successful man is
Well, there
a
you
woman.
go. Exactly. That. Yeah, there you go.
It's not Rachel, it's me.
Yeah, I think I would say, I know Andrew's being a little critical right now. I'm not sure why he needs to be. We have two different approaches. The only criticism, I've never had a criticism, I actually defended Andrew saying he did a good job debating Matt Dillahunty, for example, on secular ethics. I've seen him debate Muslims and do a very good job with that. My only criticism of him is I think that we should not, as Christians, we should always treat people with respect and be Christ-like, and we shouldn't be verbally abusive. It's fine if we get a little bit assertive in what we say, but we don't have to be, we should still treat people with kindness even if we're vigorous. I think that we've had a civil exchange even if it's vigorous. I don't know how you would feel.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I think that that's something, and that's like my main criticism I have of him, and I don't know why. I think that you can do that without name calling, without, abusiveness or other tactics, and people have different approaches, and I'm fine with different Christians offering different approaches, and people will take different approaches to me. I take a more Socratic approach, and that's fine. But I think that there's always for Christians a bare minimum of Christian morality that we should follow. St. Paul says, I can have all knowledge, but if I don't have charity, I'm a resounding gong. And so I think name calling, verbal abuse, it's always off the table. 2 Timothy 2:25 says that a Christian should correct his opponents with gentleness and kindness so they may be rescued from the snare of the devil.
Okay.
Well, so we're at 3 hours. I don't know if
Really?
you guys, we're at 3 hours, 10 minutes.
Time flies.
Oh,
I don't
wow.
know if you guys want to continue. I don't know if you
I think we
feel like,
covered a lot.
I don't know if you guys feel like we've hit all the prompts that you want to cover. I'm happy to keep going for a little bit, but I wanted to
Do we have any chats or questions?
Well, no, we all did the chats, but I wanted to check in with you guys and see if you'd like to continue, you'd like to wrap up, you'd like to hit other prompts, or...
I was hoping to...
Go home.
No, well, your fiance and I have crossed paths before. And
he
so,
wants to go out to dinner with me and my boo.
There you go.
But you haven't probably, I'm not going to say anything because you haven't revealed who it...
I have, yeah.
Oh, you have?
Who is it?
Oh, he's just like Jack, like you talked about his book on your show.
Yes,
Jack
he's
Symes.
he's a philosopher.
Symes.
Symes, S-Y-M-E-S. I have used his research in rebutting atheism. So it's a small world here.
So behind another successful man is a woman's fiance. So it all comes back to me. You and Andrew
Oh yes,
Wilson's
without
success.
you, Jack could never have been the philosopher that he.
No, you, because he
Wait,
helped
is
your
it-
arguments.
Is he a doctor?
Not like a medical doctor,
He's a
but like
philosopher.
Well, yeah,
a
like
PhD.
a
yeah.
PhD, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, is he a religious guy or?
He's
he
pantheist.
interviewed Peter Hitchens, or he talked to Peter Hitchens
Yeah.
He's
cool.
He just did a vegan surrounded. You guys should watch. He did really well.
on Jubilee.
He did one
Oh, he
vegan
was like the main guy,
Yeah.
or he was one of the 20?
one. The
Oh,
center.
okay.
Well,
have to check that
he's
out.
open to logic and things that are friendly to the Catholic worldview. So maybe if I
And
get,
OnlyFans
Did you
girls.
press-
but maybe if I get him,
I-
then I'll get you. Maybe we'll reel everybody in.
Did you try to coerce him into pegging, or like? Because I feel
I
like
think you're going to say veganism. What are you saying?
no, like, because I don't know. I feel like, did you try to coerce him into like pegging him or something? Because I feel like in society there's this pressure that women put on men to try to like get them to accept pegging, and it's just like very coercive. Did you ask more than
I've never
once?
I've never pegged him or asked to peg him.
Because that would be really coercive. If
I don't
want
to be involved in
Okay.
this discussion.
She's not amused.
I don't want to.
So you're saying
She's
you want to
not
end the
amused.
podcast
Sorry,
and
Jack.
go get food, right?
I think we've.
I do think that was pretty coercive, though.
But just
You
to
asked him.
clarify the last point you made, you said it's coercive to ask for oral sex and anal sex because it's unnatural, but you kind of conceded that, you kind of deflected, but eating pussy to make a girl come is unnatural in your view, but it's not coercive if
I
you
don't
have to
believe
ask
it. I
her.
don't believe
so
it's
it doesn't
unnatural.
cash out in the fact that it's unnatural for it to be for it to qualify as coercion.
No, because I reject that. That's unnatural. I think all parts of the body can be kissed, but the man's climax is for a particular thing, and that explains why women are often hesitant to have the climax somewhere outside of the vagina.
Wait. Oral sex on a woman's not unnatural. Does oral sex on the guy?
Well, I think
can
that's-
get behind this.
No, it depends what you mean. I do think, though, that it would count as masturbation if it is done apart from the marital act, but that gets us into more sticky sexual ethics here. But yeah, no, I think at the end of the day, I think people can see my position about the intrinsic goodness of sexuality, of marriage. When it's ordered towards that end, we have ordered good ends, healthy outcomes, healthy families, healthy children. When it deviates from that, you get to disorders, you get to ugly realities, and I don't like that. People don't like
Trent, would you debate Andrew Wilson?
that. On what?
I don't know, your disagreements, I guess. It could just be...
I would. I've been asking him for a year.
You want to debate Andrew?
Yeah, I flew out a year ago to debate him, but he couldn't do it because Rachel fell ill. But I'm booked to the hotel and everything. I've been asking him. He
I'll
owes
talk
it to
to
me after I
Andrew.
got him on Joe Rogan. So
Wait, you got Andrew on Joe Rogan?
Didn't you
you
just
kind
say
of
that?
just said I was the first domino. It
Oh,
goes Farha,
okay.
whatever, Joe Rogan.
That's one way.
Well,
want
I
him
mean,
to
when
remember the
I
little
do a
people.
debate, I try to keep my debates on specific topics where there's widespread disagreement on a very serious issue. So for me, like pornography, prostitution, fornication, I'll do religious debates on atheism, Protestantism. Our disagreement is really only about
His approach.
how aggressive a person should be. I don't want to debate him on that. I mean, I'm willing to have dialogues with people who differ from me in an approach, as long as it could be like a constructive dialogue. But if the goal of the exchange is just to use aggressive tactics like constant interruption, insults, backhanded insults, it's like, I don't mind having a conversation about that if it could just be chill and relaxed and not, it's a debate and he's going to own him. It's like, look, I want to share Christ with as many people as possible. And I am open to different ways of doing that. And I have praised when Andrew has done that well in other elements. I just think there's going to be variance in our approach, but I'm fine with a good-natured discussion that's chill about where we might disagree. So it depends.
Sure.
If I could have just like a good-natured conversation.
Well, I mean, I can tell you this. Andrew...
I don't know if we could talk about that for 3 hours. Like, how much is there to talk about?
I think Andrew could talk about debate the
I offered
merits.
Trent the same topic he debated Pearl. Well, I debated Pearl on whether marriage is good for men. Does Andrew think marriage is bad for men? Do you think it's... I'm not going to talk to you through super chats, but I don't... Yeah, that's the one debate that I don't regret, but like, so I debated Pearl on Pints of the Aquinas, and originally I said no. I told Matt Fradd, no, I don't want to debate her. But like, he kept asking, he coerced me. He kept asking me. And then I was like, okay, fine. And she was the most insufferable person I have ever, she's the only person I've ever debated who interrupted me during my dedicated speaking time. Like, not even in
Like your
cross.
opening statement.
Yes, or my rebuttal, where it's like only you were supposed to speak.
You're not
and it was
supposed to interrupt.
It was just like, I was like, what? So it was just, I found it to be
I can tell you
the
this
worst.
about Andrew. Trent, you come across like you're a very amicable sort of guy in terms of, we've had you on like 3-4 times at this point, I think 3 times.
I think 2 other times, but yeah.
2 other times, so 3 now.
Yeah.
I mean, Andrew, this is what Andrew says, he matches energy. So, I mean, the way you've conducted yourself in this debate, in your other debates, whether on here or elsewhere, you're a very calm, respectful guy. You let people finish their thought. You don't interrupt for the most part. And, but I mean, it's normal in debates. People are going to inherently, in any sort of conversation, there's going to be interruptions. I believe that Andrew would have a very mellow, good faith conversation with you. It would be a debate. You guys would have disagreements, but I don't think he would be like, you know what, fuck you, Trent, you're a cuck. Like, I don't think Andrew would go there. If you're respectful, he'll be respectful. I don't think that if you guys were to debate that it would devolve into some yelling insult match. So, I mean, Andrew's welcome to weigh in if he agrees with my assessment there, but
I don't know. But I guess he said like the thing about whether marriage is good for men or not. I didn't know if I thought Andrew wants guys to get married, so I don't know if like...
I think he does, but he has perhaps some descriptive criticisms of the state of, the marriage laws in this country, whether you're secular or Christian.
Well, sure, there's things that can be improved, but in general, I think, the stats show that men are better off when they get married. Even if they end up divorced, they, on average, are happier than men who never get married.
I'm not even sure if he would want to debate about marriage, I guess, but I think there's plenty of subject matter for it.
I don't know. I'll give it some thought. There are other people, by the way, I've seen people in the super chats like, why don't you debate so-and-so?
Like Jay Dyer? Yeah.
We're in talks.
We'll host it. You want to do a Jay Dyer? We'll
it's
do it.
Really like more like narrow theology, but I mean, I don't know if you, I don't know. I'll talk to Jay because I don't know if it's necessarily the whatever topic, but I mean, we can.
No, I mean, we can.
It's a pretty narrow theology thing we were going to talk about. We've been talking about this debating.
Well, we've had Jay on, so I mean.
Yeah, but he debates more like feminism and the sexual ethics or general like morality, I thought.
I mean, look, if somebody wanted to come on and have a vegan debate on the whatever podcast, it doesn't have to strictly just be like feminism or sex work or something.
All right,
like
I'll keep that.
We can debate religion, we can debate, politics, immigration, whatever.
Well, I'm open to that because here's my thing. I want to debate the biggest issues like atheism. I'm always like that, by the way, Trent. If you aren't a jerk, neither am I. Okay, yeah, I think the biggest thing for me would just be like, well, yeah, I mean, I guess we could just... Yeah, I just don't know if there's that much. I just feel like it's not that big of a disagreement we have. I just don't think. I mean, I get a little animated, but I think there's clear times when like people can be a little abusive.
Well, first you guys have to figure out if you guys even want to debate each other.
I don't know.
You don't?
I just want to show up, and then it's like after 30 minutes we're fine, and then it's like, oh.
I'm sure Andrew could find a way.
That doesn't bode well for me wanting to have a civil conversation. So I'll give it thought. I've talked with Jay Dyer about stuff.
Okay.
But my biggest thing is, look, I just want to.
Yeah, sure.
I want to spread my faith as many people as possible. And mostly with Andrew is more like the reason. Actually, you can thank Andrew for me being back here, that like reaching out and wanting to set this up, because he was critical of me on the Patrick Bet David show. Because Patrick Bet David asked him like, hey. Are there sewing circle Christians like, oh, they're mad I said the F word? I said the F word in our conversation. Profanity I don't care about. In general, it can be a little crude, but whatever. It's more about just like telling people F you, insulting them, being abusive. So like he said that on Patrick Bet David, and he's like, and I don't see these guys going on the whatever podcast and
abusive though? Do you think abusive is a bit...
Feminism, approach, culture. Well, yeah, we probably differ on feminism. Andrew, I'll give it some thought. If we can, I will give it some thought. And if we can, I just want to be able to have just like a regular conversation. So, but for me, it's like, I don't know. I also try to stick to the big issues. Like we talked about, like for me, pornography, fornication, prostitution, especially OnlyFans pornography. That is a huge evil that I see causing so much damage. But like nitpicking about what do you know, like I'm not like about like whether women should vote or something like that. I'm like, that is just like off in the weeds to me. I want to be talking about the big things that are going on. But there's other things, so I don't know.
Andrew might say that is a big thing, perhaps, but I mean, wouldn't it?
We are not repealing the 19th Amendment. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Setting that aside, wouldn't it be a big thing, the approach that how should Christians behave? How should Christians act? I mean, maybe that seems to be central to your criticism.
And that's fine. And look, and I'm fine with people criticizing me, being like, hey, you were too soft, or you didn't push hard enough, or this or that. That's a fair criticism. I would just want others like Andrew and others who are more aggressive to accept their fair criticism. And just for me, like, I would rather err on the side of winning the person than winning the argument.
Okay. By the way, Farha, let me ask Andrew, since he's watching. Andrew, we got to set you up with a debate with Farha.
She wants it.
Think about it. People were saying people need to see the debate, Andrew. People need to see the debate. So, Farha, you want to debate, Andrew?
I would love to.
We'll try to make it work.
I'll tell you, I should be a gentleman, then ladies first. Then I'll think about debating Andrew.
How about if Andrew and I can do the debate, then Trent will agree to it.
I got to think about that one a bit, but I'm open.
Okay, really quick. I just wanted to come back to that super quick. Oh wait, we have some. Oh no, I'll pull that up in a sec. I just have to ask. Okay, if a boyfriend asks his girlfriend for oral sex, and if a girlfriend asks her boyfriend for oral sex, are they both equally coercive, insofar as they can be coercive?
No, asking itself doesn't make it coercive. I would say one of them is more liable to coercion, in that one of them can tend to be more mirrored in coercion. But I don't think the simple request itself is coercive. I'm just saying, if you want to minimize liability to coercion, you should have the other person be the one to bring it up, was my view. Same with the makeup thing, same with the spandex thing, same with the hitting the gym after giving birth, same with sex work. I think when things are sensitive and often liable to coercion, you want to make sure those actions are undertaken by that person's own autonomy and volition, and not due to any type of pressure, nudging, coercion, which are all in like a spectrum.
Is it more mired in coercion when a man asks his girlfriend for oral sex, or when a girlfriend asks her boyfriend for oral sex, or is it equal?
I would say typically I would assume that a man, like, there is a larger culture of coercion when it comes to women performing oral sex on men than vice versa. I think like women also just perform it more than vice versa, because men ask more, they expect it more. I think in casual encounters it's done more often because that's just kind of like the expectation more, versus like going down on a woman in a casual setting is, I feel like, less common, I would assume. I have to look up the statistics, but based off anecdotal of what I hear from friends, it would seem like it's more common to like for them to go down on a guy casually on a one night stand than vice versa.
Well, regardless of which one is more common to occur, I'm more interested in the coercive element.
Well, the fact that it's more common, I think, is due to the fact. The reason it's more common, I don't think, is because women just enjoy giving head more than they enjoy getting it. I was saying the reason it happens is because of like an overarching cultural pressure on women to perform this thing.
Wouldn't it be the reverse? So if men have a greater apprehension to performing oral sex, wouldn't it be the case that a woman requesting a man to perform oral sex would be more coercive due to men's greater apprehension to performing the act?
He said he's only mean to people. He said he's only mean to people when they're mean first. And he says her vocal fry makes me want to kill myself.
I haven't even pulled it up.
I haven't even been mean yet.
Hold on. I haven't pulled it up. Do you want to engage? Did you even hear what I just said?
No, I was stun-locked by that.
That's great. So you're saying that the men are less likely to perform
stand
oral
me
sex.
For more than 30 minutes. That's nice.
You're saying,
thank you, Andrew.
Farha, you were saying that men are less likely to perform oral sex. It's less common. Perhaps this might be due. There could be varying reasons, but perhaps one of the reasons is men might have a greater apprehension to performing oral sex on the woman. So if that is the case, would it then follow that it's actually more coercive for a woman to pressure a man into a sex act that he has more apprehension of performing, as compared to women performing oral sex on men, which they seem to have less apprehension in doing so?
I don't believe they innately have more apprehension. Women actually have men are genuinely men have higher disgust responses than women, like disgust tolerances. So like women are more disgusted by certain things sexually. So I think it's actually not that women have less apprehension. I think it's that women tend to stomach and surmount their apprehension more than men. It's not.
Can I give a message to Andrew real fast, by the way?
Sure.
Oh, one last thing I thought of. Andrew had a message up earlier. I'm assuming it's very sarcastic. Good job, Trent. Farha is going to quit at OnlyFans, and your approach to her is going to change her mind. Well, I would say most debates, it's very rare for the other person to change their mind. I don't regret showing someone I debate kindness. In fact, you can go to my channel, Counsel of Trent, look up one of my debate opponents is now Catholic, because I actually previously debated a guy who was a Protestant, and I treated him with kindness, and we had a civil exchange. I didn't have to be aggressive at all. And we continued to have a kind exchange after, working on evidence together. And the thing we debated before, now he agrees with me, and he's on my side. So I have had people that I've engaged in debates with a kinder method, a method that is not trying to be super aggressive. And they have adopted my view, the view I defended in the debate. So I would just say to Andrew, I don't think... so maybe you're right, Brian. Maybe we just have to sort it through on that. But I would very much like try to find a way where it's a productive conversation where all Christians can figure out a good way to spread the gospel to people. So I will think about it, Andrew, just like I'm thinking about it with Jay. So
sounds good. All right. Well, do you guys want to wrap anything up, or should we just get into closing statements?
I don't even have a closing statement.
No closing statements.
I think people know where we stand.
Yeah.
No closing statement.
I think how about just look, if you want to know more about what I believe, go to Counsel of Trent Horn on YouTube, and then
if people want to see more of me, onlyfans.com/Farha Khalidi.
So you look people up by the URL. I don't even know how it. I heard people can't search well on OnlyFans. Is it complicated?
I don't know. I haven't really searched for other people. It's a good question.
Just because you don't. Yes. We'll leave it at that. So.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, I want to thank both of you for joining me today for this debate. Thank you, guys. Had a good time.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
For the viewers, please, if you enjoyed the stream, like the video. If you enjoyed the stream. Also, if you want to learn how to become a master debater like Farha or Trent or Andrew Wilson, you can go to debateuniversity.com. That's debateuniversity.com to become a master debater. Like the video, guys. Like the video. Let me just double check here, make sure we're not missing anything else. No, I think we are good. Let me just double check. Am I forgetting something? No, I think we're good. All right, guys. 07's in the chat. 07's in the chat. We will see you guys Sunday with a dating talk. Dating talk, 5 p.m. Pacific. And we'll see you Sunday. Good night, guys.